Welcome to the Dispatch episode for the month of Watch Out for Fireballs. This one is brought to you by our patrons, of course. We go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. But also, Duckstream this year, 2019, Duckstream is going to be December 20th, that weekend. 48 hours of live streaming, goof 'em ups, games, japes, jests. We're going to have both. That all of the proceeds of that, of course, go to the Transactive Gender Center here in Portland, Oregon. So we will have more information soon, but I want to let everyone know to mark your calendars. Escape from the family doldrums around the holidays for 48 hours of fun and merriment. That is Duckstream, the weekend of December 20th. Thanks. My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs Dispatch, our monthly Q&A, listener responses, next episode announcement topic show.
Yeah, where we do all of those things. We're going to answer your questions and prompts. We're going to read your responses to The Last Express, The Simpsons Hit and Run, and Deus Ex Human Revolution. It's going to be a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, these are always fun.
Yeah,
This is one of the breeziest recording sessions we have in the month.
I know, right? It is. Yeah. It's a good time. It's been a fun month too.
And people seem to like them.
Yeah, it's been a fun month too. Good premium stuff. We've got the Tron adaptation decay up there. We're gonna have a unfilmable about the Haunted Palace because Vincent Price is a treasure.
He is priceless. There's for people at that level as well, me and Will just recently recorded some more of our dumb shit that we do on that premium thing. So we got some of that stuff in the hopper, and it involved us sitting in the car after getting wings and recording. And that's always really fun.
Yeah.
I made a mistake talking about the Legend of Bumbo, and now I have to recreate car ambience in a $10,000 audio lab to make it match, get the edit correct. So just know that your money's going to good causes.
Yep.
So
we're just picturing you like rigged up in a wind tunnel.
Yeah, exactly. Just piping in Will ambience, just the sounds that his body makes that just emanate from him like Pigpen. Let's get into it. Here,
let's do it.
I'm going to start here with Jared. Here, we're starting with game questions and comments. Of course, Jared says, one of my favorite aspects of the Souls games is how they're unafraid of being silly. A random chuckle is a great way to break up games that are infamous for frustrating sections of difficulty. I know that you also appreciate those moments and bring them up as they appear, but why has no one brought up the ragdoll corpses? It's one of my favorite parts of the games in general, and goofily waiting around dead foes and rolling to try to launch them down a flight of stairs has given me a lot of much-needed levity in a challenging series. Hope other people find this amusing, and I will consent that I now understand the historical amount of Dark Souls 2 hate, but only because it's the only Souls game to remove ragdoll physics from enemy corpses. Thanks for the laughs. Keep them coming.
We will try.
Me and Brayton did a co-op Let's Play of Dark Souls that got aborted because of technical issues. And I made a little trailer for it that was me taking all of the corpses I could find in the first area of the depths and putting them all in a corner and then rolling around in them to Oingo Boingo's Dead Man's Party. So I appreciate the ragdoll physics.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
At the very least.
It's I feel like they're just it's kind of like this is water, it almost doesn't feel worth commenting on. You just kind of take it for granted that it's there.
Yeah. It'd be tricky. I couldn't say 1,000% that I think that is an intended thing designed to alleviate frustration and be funny. I think that lots of games have ragdoll dolls. It never works, but the idea that the entire industry is still just doing ragdolls because they think it's funny is I don't credit the industry with that kind of mono thought and dedication to to the bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea is that it's supposed to look cool when they fall over.
Yes, I think it is supposed to be, this is easier. It's easier to implement this middleware than to like put in a death animation for this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have a bespoke death animation,
right.
Where it has to lock into the animation after it dies and everything, which would be a bummer, like how they do when they line up to get parried.
I really just wish that they would leave the ragdoll corpses for the bosses.
Oh man.
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. That would be really silly.
That'd be because just regardless, they all just kind of like take a knee and then disappear, right?
Yeah. It'd be pretty fun if they literally were just corpses.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be a cool thing to have in terms of like, bell ringing in other people's world and stuff too.
Oh yeah.
Like imagine if on your way to the Taurus demon, you found a Taurus demon corpse that was from another player having killed one.
Yes.
You
could pose next to it as a trophy.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm the guy who made Jimmy John's. Here's my big game hunting.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So in answer to your question, I think people do appreciate those.
Yes.
And at the very least we do.
Yes. Absolutely. Doug writes, what is the most kinesthetically pleasing mechanic you've encountered in a game? I'd pick Spider-Man's web swinging on PS4, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. NES Zapper.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Zapper feels pretty good.
Yeah.
You like that click.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I never feel like I'm hitting what I'm aiming at with it. Like it feels good physically.
Yeah.
But
if that counts, it is a sound and a feel and an experience that I have very warm associations with.
It's a good one.
Other than that, like Doom 2 Super Shotgun or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, Super Shotgun is extremely up there.
Yeah.
For me, the rhythm of that. Spider-Man's real good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any. I was going to say Super Shotgun as just being, but that's like almost all audio design too. So it's kind of hard to like kinesthetics are a weird thing because
I would say audio is a very important part of kinesthetics.
Yeah, it's kind of like a weird catch-all term.
Yeah.
I do love swinging in that. I love teleporting and Dishonored.
Oh yeah.
Like the way that the mantling and teleporting work together. And that I think is really, really good and clever.
Yes.
And feels really good.
Kind of a recent one. Last night I played the first hour of Control. The telekinesis in that is on fucking point, man.
Good to know.
Yeah.
It's been a while since someone's done a good version of telekinesis, really.
Yeah. I have no idea. It's fresh in my memory, so recency bias. But it feels very good. Yeah.
I always forget the term recency bias because it's been popping up in my head a lot lately now that everyone is doing things of the decade and all this stuff from 2019 is showing up and I'm like, you don't even know.
Yep.
Like the dust hasn't settled. How do you know?
So you're just obligated to put out that article? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I mean that's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
So thanks, Doug. Moving on to Marcus. Marcus says, just a fun question, but in what way does music help or hinder a game? I'm thinking of everything from sparse musical scores like the FromSoft games to the dynamic scores of things like the Untitled Goose Game to the much maligned I Am the Wind from Symphony of the Night. What are the moments that best require no music? I mean, music is obviously super important.
Yes.
In general, like, most music does not hinder a game for me. I do find vocal ending themes and vocal beginning themes annoying to me.
I don't know that I could name one off the top of my head that is not embarrassing.
Yeah.
Besides
other
like
than
God
like explicit
Hand.
comedy.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Like God Hand, like there are specific kind of comedy ones. There's one of those in Dead Rising.
Yep.
Too, I think that Will likes to rap at me. Lots of Will content because I hung out with Will a lot yesterday. But there's one of those that are kind of funny, but generally like a very serious love song that is at the beginning or end of a game for no reason I don't get.
Yeah.
I think that's silly and dumb.
Yes.
So that is probably the times in which I want less of that or no music. I think that other than Souls games, which famously don't have music during levels, I think that a good time that benefits for no music is before a boss.
Yes.
Like, going into an area that looks like some shit went down and you're in the pregnant pause before the shit is going to go down. It's a good time for no music.
Yes. I think a good time for no music. I think that periods of silence are necessary for horror.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not necessarily silence, but let you live in and soak in the sounds of the world. Thinking of something like Dead Space, either of those games where there's not a lot of music. There's nothing like specifically really composed in a lot of the exploration bits. It is just about hearing the way the ship or the space station sound.
Yeah. Well, otherwise, I mean, like sound or speech in horror, like we talked about this a little bit last month, but like has a whistling in the dark kind of effect to it, which can undercut horror.
Right.
Now, you're never alone with a song.
No. But there are Silent Hill games tend to use music to a very good effect. But it is usually after an experience where that they will include non-industrial like melodic music. Never in the lead up to one.
And I think you and I also have slightly different takes on like some of the more modern music influenced stuff that happens in Silent Hill. Like I am less on board with. Yeah. Like the guitar stuff feels silly to me.
Oh yeah.
A lot of the time. Sometimes it's good, but sometimes it feels not that dissimilar to like a vocal theme.
Yeah.
At the beginning of a thing, like having the rock theme from Silent Hill 2, I think is a little bit silly.
The one that turns into a James Bond theme. Like, incongruously. I
think that's a little bit detrimental. Personally. The other way you can use comedy too, that I just thought about this because of survival horror, is like the Deadly Premonition American Idiot thing is pretty funny. Like that's an interesting use of music, and was like the moment I feel like I understood that like anything goes in that game. Like I think I was trying to take it a little bit more seriously than that up until that point.
Right.
So getting to that point, I was like, oh, okay, we're taking the piss.
Yes.
Like I get it. American Idiot. Okay.
Yeah.
So
like, I remember that this is broaching to like topic length, but like to what extent, I don't know. Let me figure out how to phrase this. Does good music help a game more than bad music harms it?
Oh yeah. I don't think so.
No.
Like personally, like bad music, like something really, really incongruous can be really fucking distracting.
Right.
Like it like ends with Dragula or something like that. Or like the the music at the end of Wolfenstein the New Colossus is just so silly and dumb to me.
Yeah.
That hurt that, not the game, but hurt that last sequence a lot.
Right.
Whereas like serviceable music just doesn't get in the way. And good music can elevate something, but it doesn't like do the opposite of ruin, at least to me.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I didn't necessarily have an answer to that question in mind. I just I don't know.
And I'm sure there's like 1,000 exceptions too.
Yes.
To what I just said. But generally, like music, like really incongruous atonal music, like music that doesn't get out of the way is almost always going to be more harmful than average or bland or mediocre music that doesn't get in the way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, yeah. What does Jake have to say?
Jake has to say, hey guys, it's a bit current, but I was wondering if you have gone in on the new Pokemon games, namely Sword and Shield. In previous episodes, you have mentioned how you are fans of the series, so I was wondering if you are day oneers or whenever you get the chance for it. Whenever I get the chance for it, basically for the past 15 years, whenever I've gotten a Pokemon game, it has been with the best intentions. I get maybe about 2 gyms in and I lose interest. So I think that I am more of a fan of the idea of the games than playing them. It is safe to say.
Yeah, I think I have become more like that.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, even though it is largely considered to be a good entry and there's nothing specifically wrong with it, Sun Moon is kind of what turned me into that.
Yeah. Like
I got that really early on and was pretty excited, and I just couldn't muster up very much like energy or enthusiasm to play it. And Sword and Shield, like I've been following the discourse on it, and there are things that definitely seem neat about it. But it's such a conservative series.
Yeah.
Like the a lot of people have thrown up that like Pokemon crossed with Breath of the Wild thing, and apparently there's like a zone that kind of feels like that. But most of the game is really business as usual. Right. The same thing they've been doing since the 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's that event that just wore on me. Like the innovations that happened in Sun and Moon weren't good enough. to me to really hold my interest. And like just seeing the new designs was cool, but I can do that through Google if I want to, like, so that one kind of was the first one I didn't make significant progress in. And previous to that, I was day one or very early on and would pick at them until I got to the end. I would never do all the extra stuff.
Yeah.
But, Black and White and the one was the one before Sun and Moon.
The one before Sun and Moon. X and Y?
X and Y. Yeah, I got to the end of X and Y and Black and White. Like the last few of them before that. I never played the sequel.
Right.
The
crystal version.
Yeah, the crystal versions. I never do that. But those ones I got through and enjoyed. But yeah, Sun and Moon, even though it's a good game, kind of broke that for me.
Yeah. I don't know, just that conservatism. I have so little time to play games discretionary, so little discretionary game time that it does not feel like a satisfying way to use that time to play something that is so similar to what came before.
No, that you've done before.
Yeah.
And the stories are never really good. Sometimes like there can be kind of charming situations or charming villains, but I don't think the plots in those games are particularly good. Like, it's real weird. Like it's a weird series that I generally I'm a fan of. If you ask me, pass fail. But the last couple, the last one and this one, I'm finding myself less interested than I once was.
What I'm saying is, all of you fucking sheep are playing Madden and you don't know it.
That's exactly. I'm glad that you put the words right in my mouth.
Yeah.
That's the official Duckfeed position on this cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
I'm good. It was a real, like, another kind of sea change in me, like, not falling out of love, but just kind of falling into like an uneasy companionship with Pokemon was us doing Yellow for the live show. Where I'm like, man, like there's just like a lot of things that have not changed that much in this series that are just like pretty rough stuff.
Yeah.
So and I guess like now TMs some of them are consumable again.
Okay.
In the new one, why would you go backwards on that?
I don't know.
It was such a dumb thing in the first place.
And why some of them?
Yeah, it's such a weird series because it's trying to like please like I'm playing Pokemon wrong is like one of the answers to this. Like I just want to beat the story, like play, and not because the story's good or because I think that's all there is to Pokemon, but that tends to correspond with the amount of Pokemon I want to play.
Yeah.
But the series has moved on to catering to competitive players,
right?
Which is why like XP share is something that's controversial, and I'm like, what? Like not having total control over when you level up your characters because they might get different weird effort values is controversial to weirdos.
Yeah.
And then so it's for those people, and then for like completionists, like I'm just going to do everything. So they put a lot of cool stuff in the optional content, and I just want to go through the game.
Right.
And they feels like they moved farther and farther away from me as a target audience for that.
Yeah. I need to examine this feeling, but like when a game like Pokemon Sword is controversial because fans are whining about the national dex not being in there or what have you, like it makes me want to buy it more to spite them, but that is that is senseless and not like a good instinct.
You're welcome to the world of people who are like, oh, they like lower the titties they lowered the titty slider on this game. I'm buying 4 copies. Or they didn't lower the titty slider, I guess. So it was on that, like the
maybe
titty slider KK slider is cousin, city cousin.
Oh Jesus.
I get that too. Gamers. Yeah. We got another one from Jake. Here. And this was suggested as a topic, but we just I don't think that we have 20 minutes on this. So we shunted it into a game question. So no offense intended, Jake. It says, what's your opinion on remakes and remasters? How different are they this console generation versus the last? What are some of the pitfalls they can fall into? What do they bring to the table that you view as valuable?
I mean, so I think we should distinguish remakes and remasters from each other. Yep. To a certain extent, because remasters I think are genuinely good. It is just a way for modern players to play games that might be difficult to get a hold of. Like Last of Us Remastered seemed kind of senseless when it came out, but I don't know, like try playing a PS3 game now. Yeah. Like it still looked good. Like the I think that's the difference, right? Like I like a remaster in terms of sustainability. I think that like the Dark Souls remaster that changes the frame rate and stuff like that alone does not make it that much better than Dark Souls. You're right.
ever was. It just makes it so you can play it on PS4 and play it on Switch and stuff, and that's great.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
For archival purposes, and again, not archival, it's not maintaining the original, but just, games need, you got to be able to play them for more than 5 years after they come out.
Yeah, for longevity purposes.
Yeah.
And there's huge swaths of game history that are lost to that, like specifically like a lot of stuff from the weird Windows 95 exclusive era. There's tons of stuff that is just like incredibly hard to play.
Yes.
In the PC world from that, and it's different than but a remake would address that. And then, or a remaster rather, and then like a remake is what something like Resident Evil. We throw that in there.
Yeah.
Thing Link's Awakening,
Tomb Raider
like
Anniversary.
Yeah. Through that, and in general, I think those are I'm for those. I got no problem with that. Some of those are amazing games.
Yeah.
In their own right. There are times I prefer the original. They don't hurt me.
Yeah.
In general, like I don't get super excited about a remake. Like I think that the times it's going to be a Resident Evil is pretty rare.
Yeah.
For me, or a Resident Evil 2, I guess. Like those are pretty rare to me that I get like very excited about them.
Yeah. Resident Evil 2 is the one in recent memory that I got excited about.
Yeah. But they don't hurt anything. Like I don't have a strong opinion about them one way or another. Like I want to know if there's something, so I'm not saying this debate controversy because I haven't played it, but like one of the things about, I was like, oh, there's a Link's Awakening remake. Like I like Link's Awakening as it is now. They're not changing very much other than the graphics and some ease of use stuff. Like I'm okay without this.
Yeah.
Like I think I like the old graphics better. So why would I play this? But it doesn't hurt me that it came out. I'm not annoyed by it.
Yeah, having played it, I can say, but you had the right read on it. Like it was good. It had been a long time since I played Link's Awakening, and those quality of life changes they made are good. But it's a very similar proposition. Whereas
like a ground up remake of that, I might have been a little bit more interested in, but it would still depend on whether it was any good. I'd still wait and see.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I just don't have strong enough opinions.
No, and I don't really fall into like, it's rare that I look at that and think, oh, they could have made something new. Generally, when a remake like that comes out, it's in the middle of a bustling series already. Like it's not like them making the Link's Awakening remake took away from them making the follow up to Breath of the Wild. Generally, it's big enough companies that they're working on a bunch of stuff at this at different times.
Opportunity cost is a weird thing to like. I'm not saying that I, or either of us never fall into this.
Yeah.
But typically from the outside, I think that I am definitely too ignorant to cite opportunity costs as often as I do. And that's generally true of people as well.
Yes.
Like we don't actually know that this other thing we wanted instead would have happened.
Yes.
So, moving on to some life questions.
Yeah. This one, we should have gotten to this one last time. However, it's generally always good to think about haunted houses. Rick writes, in the spirit of the season, since you dudes are pretty into haunted houses and have been to far more of them than I have, I wondered if you have any thoughts on the extreme haunts, on some of the extreme haunts out there. With McCarney Manor probably being the most notorious, I saw it get coverage in 2 separate shows on Netflix, and my impression was that someone never learned that BDSM is supposed to be safe, sane, and consensual, and that old Russ is 100% jerk in it in the edit room. But I'm curious to hear y'all's takes on things. I don't necessarily need to feel like my life is in danger.
You don't want me to. You don't need.
I don't need you shooting me with staple guns, vomit. Gary.
Yeah, you don't want to be fed your own vomit.
No.
In the back of a van, because that's what McCaney Manor is.
Is that really what that is?
It is now. I watched one of those documentaries. As well.
Who's old Russ?
On it, and he's the guy who runs McCaney Manor.
Okay.
He's certainly jerking off,
right,
to portions of it, like 1,000%. Watching that, you get the most jerk off energy I've ever seen. Like watching his like weird twinkle in his eyes during it. It's actually like it's that I thought the documentary, the one I watched, it says there's 2 different shows. I only watched one of them. I thought it was pretty lame. Like I thought it was like not very interesting.
Right.
But just that guy's weird horny like tinkle in his eye. He had one horny apple in his eye the entire time. Like it was like probably the most just compelling thing about the movie.
Yeah.
I think they're weird and dumb, but there's a huge scale. So like McKinney Manor is the infamous one that there's no safe word. They basically at this point they black bag you, put you into a van, and then for the better part of a day, like waterboard you and vomit in your face and staple gun you.
Jesus.
While you cry and beg to leave, and then you can't because you signed a contract. And then whenever they feel like they're done with you, they kick you out.
Yeah.
And sometimes people say that they like it. There's like a waiting list that's like 20,000 people long to get on. He doesn't make money from it. He asks you to donate 2 cans of dog food.
To
a shelter to get in, so that's what makes me think he's getting paid in semen that he produces out of his body. He pays himself. He writes himself a big ass check at the end of every sesh.
Something is going into some kind of bank. Yeah.
Yeah, like writing a check as a euphemism for coming is very funny to me. I just jerk off until my dick writes a check.
Yeah.
And then
hopefully it doesn't bounce.
I'm gonna cut a check. So yeah, but the rest of them that are like quote unquote extreme tend to be more arty.
Yeah.
I went down a real rabbit hole with these last month. There's like a Cracked article where somebody went through Pitch Black, which is a famous one in LA that is like has nudity and is sexual, but there is a safe word. And they basically said what happened in it. What I wanted was spoilers for it. And it doesn't, that I don't have any problem with. It's not for me, but I don't think it's gross. I think that the McKinney Manor is probably pretty gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of petitions to shut that down. People hate it.
Yeah.
For good reason.
I think not for me is where I come down on it. Mostly because I don't like at the end of the day, I speak in cliches. At the end of the day, I like haunted houses more for set design and just like scenario or concept than I do for any sense of like actual scare. The scares are a little bit secondary to me.
Well, and we just spent a whole episode talking about different kinds of scares, and like the kind of scare of being black bagged and waterboarded is scary. Yeah. But it's not the kind of scary of walking into a room and seeing like a cool lab. Like those are different kinds of like, or even just having something jump out at you. Yeah. Like it's just not a flavor of terror that I'm like interested in at all.
Have you seen the Nathan For You where he helped out the haunted house?
No, that show is like really like weirdly hard to get all of, and it was initially. Like I was trying to watch it on Comedy Central.
Oh yeah.
Before I just went and got like Netflix and I can watch it now. Right. But I was trying to watch it on Comedy Central, and it kept having interstitial ads at like in the middle of sentences. Weird. And then I would have to restart the video afterwards and then fast forward to where I was.
Jesus, thank you.
So I was like. Yeah, thank you, streaming. I was like, I'm going to watch Nathan For You all the way, and then I didn't do it, and then now I end up.
No, I'd say Hulu's the best way to do it, but I understand not paying for a subscription service like that. But basically, what he does is it's the same haunted house, but at the end, he comes out and says, "Hey, that employee that touched you had something contagious and deadly, so we're going to need to take you to a hospital." They take him to a hospital where they paid all the doctors to be like really concerned about it, and then at the end they're cleared, and as they step out of the hospital, there's a sign that says "Haunted House Exit."
That's really, really good.
Yep. God, I fucking love that show so much.
That's very funny. That's a really, really good idea.
Like the concept was the best publicity a haunted house can get is if somebody sues them for it being too scary. Yeah. So that's what he decided to do. Sorry, I am just laughing about funny TV right now, but
no, it's quite because it's very good. Yeah, I need to do a full watch of that show. I've not seen all of it, but I do love it.
It's very good.
So. Moving on, Andrew says, how do you guys deal with pain and strain in your hands from playing so many games for the show? If so, how do you deal with it? Or do you guys deal with it? If so, how? I don't get pain and strain from controllers. I do sometimes get pain and strain from like reaching with a mouse and not having my wrist at rest, and I just deal with it by taking breaks.
Yes. I do not get them if I feel like it's coming on. I take breaks, but I already take a lot of breaks anyway. So that is my primary way that I deal with it. This is not a solution that's available to everybody, but I do have an adjustable desk, and like that helps me change posture and stuff. Throughout the day or throughout a session. Yeah. Let's see here. Lewis writes, what songs are inextricably linked to exes, breakups, or rough times that are now impossibly hard to listen to? Donnie and Joe Emerson's Baby, the entirety of Sam Cooke, Al Green, and Sly and the Family Stone for me. Venga Bus by the Venga Boys.
Yeah?
No,
the Venga Bus wasn't. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Because you used to date the old person who shilled for Six Flags.
Yeah. He was such a good dancer, Gary.
Yeah, I know. He had moves.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't look at the mantle when you're poking the fire. Like.
Oh, jeez. My answer for this is no.
Oh, the only thing I can think about is one of my all-time favorite Kinks songs. Is called "Strangers."
Mm-hmm.
That was a song I walked to at my wedding.
Oh, geez.
So that's a little bit of a rough one, but it's not horrible because that ended, relatively well, and I'm friends with my ex.
Yeah.
But it does always make me think, like, oh yeah, I had a marriage and was married, and all these things happened, which is just a surreal thing.
Yeah. No, yeah. Sorry, my answer on that is boring, but.
No. It is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to some media questions here. Is this me or you?
This will be you.
Me. Yeah. Ryan says, Gary, I saw your praise for The Witch on Twitter. While I agree that's awesome, there was some backlash from audiences, not critics. When it came out, they said it wasn't really a horror movie. It didn't meet their expectations. So a question for you guys, how does your view of horror as a genre differ from the popular perception of it? Are there examples of horror movies that were popular successes, as opposed to an indie success like The Witch, that you think are legitimately good? Thanks.
Yeah.
I think there are tons of just the second part, which is easy. Like, of course, I think there are big budget horror movies that are great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That Halloween, the most recent Halloween continuation movie, that movie's really good.
Oh, and I didn't hear good things about that.
Super good. Me and Allison went and saw that when she came out and visited.
Nice.
And we both had a blast. It's really fun. Super good.
Cool.
And the 80s are full of legitimately good big budget horror movies. Mm-hmm. I think Poltergeist is a good movie.
Yeah.
It's a cool movie. It's scary and cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. And
Alien,
Alien, of course. I think that popular success and good horror movie, those are not mutually exclusive. Even if there's a turn or a genre, I don't know, reasonable people can disagree as to whether or not the torture porn stuff, the Saw and Hostel are good or worthwhile. I think Saw 2 and Hostel 2 are really good movies, really good horror movies. Yeah.
And fuck, you run into stuff like Get Out.
Yes.
That's not an indie movie.
No.
It's a smaller studio, but it's culturally ubiquitous, and that's one of my favorite movies ever. That's a great movie. It's one of my favorite all-time best horror movies.
As to the first part of the question, genre gatekeeping is one of the let's say less productive things a person can do in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a negative opinion of genre gatekeepers.
So something, I don't like it. I also have decided, and this is just a pet peeve of mine, but the rush to kind of gerrymander things out of the horror genre can be annoying to me. It feels like Hot Dog, a Sandwich, Die Hard as Christmas movie style stuff a little bit to me.
Yeah.
And I question the motivation of it. When someone's like, oh, this isn't really a horror movie. And it's well, it's a question of intent. A horror does not have to be a specific thing. To me, The Witch is absolutely a horror movie. Mm-hmm. I think that movie is full of dread and tension and horrific concepts and stuff like that. Just because there isn't a monster that comes out and jump scares, that is just a really weirdly narrow definition of horror. I feel the same way about The Lighthouse. People who are oh, it's actually a comedy. It's no, there are funny bits in it,
right?
But just saying it's actually a comedy feels a little bit like a trick. Like a stunt, like a party trick almost to me. If you think, Pokemon Snap is actually an FPS if you think about it. I'm
right.
We all just come on.
Let's all repeat it together. Technically correct is the worst kind of correct.
Yep. And this is, when people say The Lighthouse isn't a horror movie, I don't think they're trying to be technically correct. I think they're trying to do a stunt. It feels like a stunt to me.
Yeah. No, you can say, oh, this isn't scary, but I don't know.
Yeah.
There are horror movies that aren't scary.
Totally.
Yeah. It just,
many of them.
Everybody has their own, triggers for that kind of stuff. And to say that like, oh, there needs to be something supernatural for this to be a horror movie. Like, I don't fucking Psycho's a horror movie, Doc.
Yeah. And then nothing's, and also like scary is so subjective, right?
Yeah.
Because there was like a big complaint about Midsummer. Like, it was like, oh, it's not really scary. And I'm like, well, I thought that movie was really scary.
Yeah.
Like, it's not hereditary scary, but like, I still found that movie really scary,
Yeah.
So, I don't, so to me, like my opinion on that is that it's like you said, not a great use of time.
Yeah. Gerrymandering is a good word for it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not my favorite thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that said, I'm not going to write a Medium essay about it. I just find it mildly annoying.
Yeah. It's just not preferred behavior, let's say, or not something I would do.
Yes.
Andy writes, I'm wondering how you guys get people into tabletop role-playing games. My friends and I have played a bunch of time-intensive board games, like Axis and Allies, for a long time, but I would like to try to get them into Call of Cthulhu. They have never done anything like role-playing and are pretty hesitant about it. They are willing to give it a go. Any tips for a new keeper to make the attempt as good as it can be?
Yeah, that's tough, because Call of Cthulhu is a weird game.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to kind of be signed up for it. I think I would just setting expectations is the most important part of starting any role-playing project.
Yes.
So saying things like, don't think of this as a game where, the goal is to win. Think of this as a game where the goal is to tell a complete and cool story.
Mm-hmm.
Do not, it's important to, kind of role play this, but also, yes, like the first haunted thing that happened, you're genre savvy, you'd go home, part of you're playing a character who would be curious.
Yeah.
So just keep in mind that it is mandatory that you're curious or the game doesn't work. Like, appreciate the fiction.
Yeah.
Be in the genre we're in. I think that setting those expectations is probably the most important part.
Yes. I don't necessarily have an answer, and my answer wouldn't be to this particular question. It would be that maybe to try to catfish them into role playing a little bit, pick something that's a little bit crunchier, pick a system that's a little bit crunchier, a little bit more war gamey, and then like just trick them into role playing. Make it easier for them to come over for.
Yeah. Like if you played Axis and Allies, if you played like tactical games, play Iron Kingdoms. Iron Kingdoms is a role-playing game that is like 50-50 split between tactics and role-playing. And it allows you to kind of transition however you like. So you can slowly become more of a role-playing situation. And there's a lot of videos and good stuff out there. Like I always recommend Matt Colville's series on running the game is really good. And he has a good one on encouraging people to role-play. And the two big tricks he uses is like, voices are only kind of in part of role-playing, but like if you use them or try to characterize people differently, you can lead by examples. And referring to people by their character name and being like, how does Bargs respond to that? What does Bargs think about that? And that gets them thinking about an external self.
Yes.
In a way that I think is cool.
Those sound like good tips.
So what does Michael say? Is that me?
I believe this is you.
Michael says, hey guys, new patron here. I wonder if you could discuss games that have addressed certain political climates, successfully or not. Much like some games are active in gender discussions like Cyberpunk or communist regimes like Papers, Please, are there games that spoke to Watergate or the increase in identity politics after 9/11, aside from war games like Call of Duty? Thanks for the great shows. Boy, do I not have a good answer for this, and I'm embarrassed about it. I don't want to ignore this because it's an old question, but I don't know.
So it's weird because like there's a strain of games specifically that came out of Japan or Capcom after 9/11 that commented on the war on terror, but only tertiarily. So like Resident Evil 4 is a part of the response to Leon as an American agent is in the light of the way the world views American adventurism after 9/11. Killer 7 weirdly is about a fallout from the war on terror to a large degree. Just those are two examples that come to mind like right away. But I don't necessarily have any other like huge answers for that. I don't know specifically a game that looks at Watergate. However, I know I haven't played this, but I know Mafia 3 is it's not like a, Italian mom, like, who took my cigar? But, you play as a black person dealing with with mob kind of stuff in the South in the 60s, like during the civil rights era. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are certainly examples of things that kind of use that as a setting, but I don't have deep catalog for it. Yeah. Mafia 3 is a good pull. Like, I haven't played that yet, but I have it. It's waiting for me.
Yeah.
I'm curious about it.
Yeah. No, it'd be fun to beat up some racists in a video game.
Yeah. Yeah. Always fun. So yeah, there's a good answer for this. I wish I had more to contribute, but I think you covered it.
Around the same time as Mafia 3, Watch Dogs 2 is kind of about the Internet of Things dystopia.
Tech.
Yeah.
Yeah. The tech startup kind of stuff.
Yep.
It's so weird. Like, I recognize that game is probably good and I should play it, but I was so like just absolutely repulsed and uninterested in Watch Dogs 1. And just the fact that it's a totally different thing is just like, it's hard for me to internalize.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Matthew writes, I'm curious what Call of Cthulhu mythos stuff you'd recommend outside of Lovecraft's actual works. My interest has been piqued by Unfilmable, and rather than revisit stuff I've already read, I was wondering what you might recommend. I'm talking any media, really. Movies, though you're already covering that. Comics, games, but chiefly books and stories. Thanks.
Yeah. This is a boring answer for this, but I think that a really good way to dip your toes in this are compilations. I read a couple of like modern short story collections of mythos stuff, and I also read a book called Shadows Over Baker Street, which are Sherlock Holmes stories that take place in the mythos.
Yep. Which
was a fun little, mashup. Like, if that was a t-shirt, I would hate it, but as a book, it was pretty fun.
Right.
And that kind of gives you an idea, what authors that you might want to check out. Then I completely failed to actually go and read those authors' books. I just like their stories that I like from them. And that was kind of how I've sampled other literature stuff in the mythos, other than dipping my toes a little bit into some Ramsey Campbell stuff, which is all pretty good.
Yeah.
The Severn Valley Goat with 1,000 Young stuff is actually pretty good.
I would echo the compilations. I've talked in the past about a compilation that I got called the Hastur Cycle, which is good. Kind of just incorporates things related to Hastur. That's part of a longer series by Chaosium. There's the Nyarlathotep Cycle. There's the Sithagwa Cycle, things like that. There's one called In the Court of the Yellow King that is by various people, things related to Carcosa. Yeah, and then another one, like, I don't know, weirdly, you can go through the Malleus Monstrorum, look for, read the entries that you think might sound cool, and then look at the authors that come from there. Like, there's a compilation called Cthulhu 2000 that has Mr. Shiny in it. Just the story with Mr. Shiny,
And one of the worst names for a book.
one of the worst names. Yes, Cthulhu 2000 is a very bad name for a book, but it's for sale on Kindle, so it's not that it is not that hard.
You don't have to. No one has to see the cover.
Yeah.
So nobody has to see you reading Cthulhu 2000.
Yes. Specifically for comics, I don't want to steal your thunder, Gary, but Neonomicon / Courtyard. / Provenance, like Neonomicon, like that was written first. That stands alone really, really well. Like, you can,
the Courtyard was written first.
Oh, was it? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know
Courtyard came first. It's old. Like, it was actually like a pretty old comic, and he did a follow up to it quite a bit later.
Gotcha.
It was a short story, actually.
Yeah.
So.
Neonomicon is a really easy putt. You can, it's just a trade paperback. You can read it over the course of an hour and have fun. There are cool ideas in it. You don't need to be like necessarily invested in getting, omnibuses of Providence.
Yeah. Content warning on Neonomicon.
Yes.
There's some heavy stuff in it. Like, I like it. We've talked about it before on the thing. There are people who find it beyond the pale. I do not find it gratuitous or bad. I don't think you're bad if your opinion is different, but just know that there is some really heavy sex stuff.
Yes,
in it. Partly because Alan Moore is a weird old pervert.
Yeah. No, that thank you for bringing that to mind. It has been a long time since I read it.
Yeah. There's a really pretty good mythos book from Boom Studios that I used to have the omnibus for, and now is incredibly expensive and hard to find, and I sold it, called Fall of Cthulhu, that suffers from some dodgy art, has some less perfect, like, kind of ideas in it, but also has a bunch of really cool ideas in it. and has really like a really pretty great version of Nyarlathotep in it. It's my favorite stuff that's been done with the Dreamlands.
Okay.
Really cool Dreamlands. The colors are really queasy. Like I think it actually like sells what that would look like and why that's cool better than any Dreamland stories do. I think that's a fun comic. And it's explicitly Lovecraftian. Both of those things are explicitly in mythos.
Yes.
They're not inspired by, but they're,
Yeah. Well, what was the latter one called? Can you remind me?
Fall of Cthulhu.
Fall of Cthulhu. Gotcha.
Yeah. It is kind of hard to find in the big omnibus edition.
Yeah.
Nowadays, because Boom Studios is a small studio, but it's cool. I would like to reread it. I've been kind of half looking for that omnibus, at used bookstores. And even though I sold it for like $60, I would probably, I'd probably spend that to get it back. It's just much more expensive now.
Yeah. No, the omnibus is like looking at it on Amazon. It's like $96 right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's spendy. Mm-hmm. So, and it's not a huge book. It's actually like a small size omnibus. Mm-hmm. It's weird. It's a little book.
Yeah.
So it's weird.
Cool.
Should we do one more media one and then move on to show questions?
Yes. Yeah, let's do that.
What makes sense? Yeah, that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
What is a good one here? We kind of did, this is just real quick. Sean Dorsey asked a couple questions about being the first time playing D&D and asking for some tips. We kind of covered a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. But just, how to get out of this mindset that you have to win, is that it's not a game, really.
Right.
Like it is a game, but it's more collaborative storytelling, I think.
Yeah.
And at least, and it's, they're just your friends and the stakes are so low, it's, so getting out of that mindset is a little bit tricky, but just know that like, I think that reframing the whole thing is not saying you win.
Yeah.
I think is probably, the best way to kind of come into it and think.
Agreed.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, there's a second part to that real quick. That's why I brought that one up as the media, yes. Which is, what is the best or favorite video games that give a similar feeling to tabletop? And that's tricky, because the story stuff never quite does. Mm-hmm. Sitting at the table is like this largely, in my experience, is a lot of times like a mostly improvised and, more importantly, very collaborative experience. Like you're making decisions as a group. So like, what an adventuring party does in D&D is not the same as what a choice I would make while playing a video game ever.
Right.
It's a Gestalt thing with me and my friends coming together to decide what we think makes the most sense. Mm-hmm. And that is, I'm coming to believe that's the hardest thing to replicate. Yeah. In a video game.
Evidently, because it's not been done well that I know of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mechanically, there's lots of games that feel like that. And to me, like a lot of times games with strong action economies feel like that, like turn-based kind of action economies. So things like Divinity Original Sin 2 or even XCOM feel a lot like playing certain types of tabletop combat to me.
I think that the something like the Temple of Elemental Evil or something like that, where it's a straight up like adaptation of the system, that might not necessarily be the best way to go to get into that, although it is it is a way to,
it's very accurate
to use your knowledge of the rules to help you play the game. I think that tactical games like, I don't know, Final Fantasy Tactics feels really similar to 3.5 era D&D to me,
Totally. Yeah. And then in terms of like capturing the flavor, even though it doesn't capture that collaborative decision making or the choice structure, like something like a Baldur's Gate 2 captures an epic D&D, like a year of campaigning, like what the things you might do in that, and that kind of a little that flavor pretty well, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't have anything more to add on that.
It's an interesting problem that has just never been really quite solved. Which is probably fine, because I just go to those things for different things.
Yeah.
It's
fine.
I go to games for a different feeling.
Yeah. Let's see here. Super Sweet writes, "Hey guys, I've been wondering if you ever feel the pressure."
Hey guys.
Sorry, I can't say hey guys, not like Greg. I have to say hey guys like Greg Turkington now. Yeah. And I didn't realize that the way he said that was a joke until watching Mr. America, and that's how he butts into every scene.
It's really funny. It's really good. Hey guys. I really like that cadence.
We moved on to show questions here. Sorry. Super sweet. Hey guys, I've been those two words can't be a joke. I've been wondering if you ever feel pressure of time constraint. You guys go through so many games in depth and put out these high quality podcasts so frequently, all the while attending different events and maintaining a personal life. Do you ever feel overwhelmed?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, frequently.
Sometimes stuff gets down, down to the wire. I just events conspired to make it so that I had to like cram Deus Ex Human Revolution. That's fine. I still like that game quite a bit. I hope, I think that, and I hope that I've gotten good at separating those things, separating time crunch away from my analysis of the game.
Evaluation.
Yeah.
I think that we both have done it long enough that we can be as aware as you can be.
Yeah.
About that stuff and can separate as much as you can. The thing that happens to me, and this is my rhythm, is I get very far ahead because I have a constant compulsion to. I end up in mind states very frequently where the only thing that releases like good feel chemicals for my brain is work. So I get very far ahead, and then I overestimate how ahead I am. And then I relax, quote unquote. I go into, I don't think I've relaxed a day in my life. But
I start worrying about something else.
Yes, I find a fresh hell. And then I worry about that, or I go into a depression fugue state, gaming fugue state, which I've been on one of my real greatest tears of depression gaming, like in memory, for maybe the last 3 weeks. It's been pretty intense, guys. So my depression gaming has been, I'm reaching highs that I haven't reached since like 9th grade.
I'm not laughing because you are depressed. I'm laughing at how you are expressing this. Because you are expressing it as a joke. Just so people don't think I'm being a callous asshole.
No, it's fine. I'm also, I will be okay. I just don't, there's just like times in your life. Like I imagine if you looked at like somebody's entire life, like a mosaic, and there would just be like one part that's just this like black and brown smudge. And then you would reference a graph, and that tells you how many times you're showering per week during that smudge.
Yeah.
And I'm in the like averaging about 3 times a week smudge right now.
Gotcha.
2 to 3.
Gotcha.
So not super great. So I get into those things. I make room for that. And then I have to kind of panic. Like right now we're starting to record stuff for next month, our next episode. And I have some work to do on that this week. I got pretty far ahead, and also for Bonfireside Chat, like I need to actually sit down and really play Blasphemous. I've got some stuff. So I do definitely end up feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah. I do just occasionally stop and think, how the fuck did I do this and also have like a more than full-time job?
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
What in the world?
It was all I did. I was like really, really depressed about it.
Yeah.
I was very, I had a really hard time with it. So I did it, but I wasn't good.
Yeah.
It wasn't good.
Yeah.
So,
so yes, we do get time constraints, time crunch.
Yep, absolutely. And then, and maintaining it is just,
planning.
Yeah. Planning. Doing my best, pushing through, willpower.
Yeah.
Dan says, how long does it take to edit an episode of Watch Out for Fireballs? What are the tricky parts where you tend to source the music for games? From where do you tend to source the music from this? Because that can sometimes be difficult.
Yeah. To answer the last question first, YouTube generally. If there's no good one, if there's nothing good on there, it gets way more difficult. Specifically, like I remember editing the Callahan's Crosstime Saloon episode, but there's only one song of that from that that's available on YouTube, and that's the Drunkard song, the one that opens up. Everything else, I had to like go onto some really shady sites and download the .MIDI files, import those into Logic, and then export them as MP3s in order to put them in the show.
Yeah,
yeah, it was a lot.
Yes. You guys need to get MIDI capable Ponos, and then we won't have to do that bullshit. Generally the same thing. And then sometimes just a Google. Like if YouTube is giving me shit, sometimes you can just find a blog. That just has a shady zip that I'll roll the dice on.
Yep. No, you just roll the dice on the Google Drive link that somebody puts up.
Exactly. This seems legit.
Yeah.
I love I love Google. So you click on poison links.
Mm-hmm.
Is part of it, and then it's how long it takes. It depends on how many cuts there are. So like how many mistakes we make, how long it is, how much music there is. Typically, like I take breaks during this and stuff, so I'm a real slow paced editor. Like I tend to multitask while I do it.
Yeah.
So it generally takes me about an hour.
Yeah,
to do that, but I'm
budget.
also like in between getting up and getting snacks and doing shit like that.
I budget about an hour to do it, and that includes like export and things like that. And that might not sound like an awful lot. It used to be a lot more when we did sketches. That used to be the most time consuming thing. But just
and before we did markers.
In
the early, like the first year of the show, like it was real time plus. So like for every hour of the show, I felt like it probably was more than an hour of editing. And we started out with doing shorter episodes and we started getting longer and longer. And there were definitely times where I'd be like, well, I'm clearing out this afternoon. Like, I'm going to edit this from 12 to 4, and it's tedious work. And there's no replay value in it, is the way I like to put it. So if there's a mistake and you lose progress, it is the most demoralizing thing in the world. It is not fun to do twice. The times I have had to re-edit something, is horrible.
It's wonderful that Audacity has gotten more stable.
way better, because it used to crash with some frequency. Now it barely ever crashes. But it is a thing where like losing your work for any reason, sometimes that's just user error. It can be very frustrating. Or your computer, like there's a power outage or some shit. I've had that happen. So
it happened to me once, and I went and I bought a UPC. So
because it's bad. So not too long though. It's actually pretty manageable, comparatively manageable. By far, the thing that is the largest time consumption thing is actually playing through the games.
Let's see here. Matt Bixler, hello. Writes, how much data about the show do you guys take in? Listener numbers, responses, quote, engagement for want of a less poisoned term, and how much does it factor into what you do with the show? Not very much. Something that I really like about podcasts, actually, at least ones that are served through RSS, is that you don't gather an awful lot of data about people. I don't necessarily I wouldn't want and wouldn't know what to do with this is where somebody stopped listening in the show. Like, I feel like that is a huge breach of privacy, actually.
And a real way to absolutely drive ourselves fucking mad. Can you imagine recording an episode and having to keep in mind, actually around this time is when people stop listening, so we have to really razzle dazzle that up, and having that in the back of your mind the entire time we recorded.
That's how you get YouTube.
Hell,
do you want YouTube? Because that's how YouTube happens.
YouTube all over this shit.
Right.
It's that would literally drive me mad. And it is so against our kind of stance and philosophy to make decisions based on things like that. We do things that, for want of a less disgusting poison term, to use your thing, like market research things, when we'll be like, hey, which of these games should we cover next? Or what are things that you care about for Patreon? And we'll sometimes make decisions based on that. But down to that granular level, typically the thing that has served us well and that we have to do is find the thing that is A, we want to do, B, is sustainable in terms of workload. That's when you look at things like Bonfireside Chat going back to its original schedule of every 2 weeks after Sekiro. I know some people are probably bummed out about that. At the same time, that's the auspices we brought it back, and we were A, what we want to do, B, what we think is sustainable. Those are always going to have to be the driving forces behind everything. Otherwise the whole thing will fall apart. It won't work.
So in terms of things that I look at and things that I keep track of, is the secondary things are 7-day and 30-day download totals for a given episode. But the primary one, and this is going to sound gross, and I don't mean it to sound gross, it's literally just number of patrons and the Patreon total. That is the metric that I feel like we have the most to be able, that is the metric we have the most control over. Like trying to maximize the number of downloads that we get is not something we have a lot of control over, but we have levers to change to incentivize people to patronize and stay patronized, keep patronizing us,
And even that is something where we can kind of try to influence it, but we're competing with a world of factors that are like somebody getting a raise or not, or somebody losing their job or not, or somebody having a kid or not, or somebody moving into a more expensive apartment or not. Things like that we're not going to try to compete with, and we think it's I think it's obscene.
Obscene for sure. At best, unseemly to try and pressure people. All we can do is try and incentivize the right things.
So wherever like the proper point is between like we want to do it, we can do it, and you want to hear it, and we just try to find the center of that.
Yeah.
And there are only certain ways that like data helps with that.
Yeah.
If people are digging what we do see it in the Patreon primarily, but it's not something that we adjust on that granular of a level.
Right.
Not least of which because I don't feel like it's a good use of time, and it does feel gross and invasive, and
and it's real easy to get.
It's cool that we don't have to.
It's great that we don't have to. Yeah. I can't imagine. Like
if we were on YouTube, we would have to.
Yeah. We would have to chase that algorithm. We would have to adjust a bunch of stuff. I like serving the audience as opposed to the algorithm, Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like I cut you off there.
No, that's that's all that I had. Don't worry.
Yeah. Cool. Moving on. This is actually a great, I wish I had said this earlier in a dispatch. This should have been a dispatch a long time ago. On2 says, for those of us potentially thinking about jumping onto the Watch Out for Fireballs executive producer tier, which is when you get to pitch a game, what is that process like? So I can, and there's some follow-up questions, but I just want to answer that real quick. Because I should have answered that before. We have a pretty set process for this. I have basically a form message that I send, and it says our criteria, which is we ask for 3 picks. Typically, people send them to us weighted, but I don't include that verbiage anymore,
right?
Because I don't want to set up like a feeling of like, oh, like we're choosing your number 3 pick, and that's a slight.
Right.
We just 3 picks, equally weighted as best you can that you want us to cover. That we can do in one episode. So that can be, roughly, I love like a 12-hour game, but like 20 is basically the tops. Like you can suggest other things, but it's more likely that we're going to do it. And able to play, like easy to get a hold of. It's not like it's something that we, is going to be like very difficult to play.
Yes.
Like a Windows 95 game that is impossible to emulate kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then once we get those, I run those by Kole. We look at our schedule. We see what we can fit into our schedule, and we look at factors like obviously how long it will take to play, how interested we are in it, whether we have things we want to say about it, and like whether it interferes with something else we already have planned.
Right.
So if we just did, so for example, we just did Alan Wake, and somebody in their list of things they suggested Control, and I don't want to put 2 Remedy games that close to each other on the schedule, like just a couple months apart. I don't, it just feels like a little silly to me, and we're going to be constantly making comparisons. I think it'll make a worse episode. I think having some breathing room right there. So I was like, let's not do that one.
Yeah.
And then we pick based on that, and then I check in with the patron and make sure they're okay with it. And then assuming they're okay with it, then we just go for it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think back. I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's ever been a time where somebody sent over three possibilities and we're like, nope. Like we've always gone with one that they've given us. Yeah.
I can't really imagine saying, unless somebody is like literally bad faithing us, I choose Final Fantasy 13, 1, 2, and 3, like unless somebody is like just trolling us, I can't imagine a situation where we have to reject.
It's a weird use
of money.
And the
nice thing about, that's what I was going to say. Like the nice thing about that costing money is that like, hopefully people aren't using it to do that to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so that's basically it. And I would encourage people, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
You're going back and forth. Like every once in a while, someone will make a joke and they're like, oh, I can't wait until I have the savings to fuck the boys over with Kingdom Hearts or something. And it's like, well, it probably wouldn't happen. Like,
no,
we're still people. We still have to go through it. And like, it is, as far as Patreon goes, it's a spicy meatball, at like $150, but also, of that's like $60 to me. And I don't feel like it is bragging to be like, my time is worth more than $60 for 30 hours. You know, like
Yeah.
just being like, well, you know, you don't necessarily get to buy me for $60. Like you get to suggest something that like, we're going to make an episode out of it. We are taking as a suggestion. It's something you're going to be able to hear sooner, and we're going to give it our treatment.
Yeah.
But it's not like, it's not, you just get to ask me to do something.
Right.
And then I just do it for what is ultimately not that much money.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's less about it like coming to us, and it's more, you know, paying to steer the show into that game. Yeah.
Yeah. Steering the show is a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's N2 also says, of the games that we've covered at that tier, were there ones where most of them games we'd eventually would have covered down the line, or which were picks that were not on your radar? I would say like maybe half and half.
Yeah, just about.
Like there's stuff that we've gotten suggested that I couldn't imagine us not doing, but we've never, if somebody patronized us and it was something that we had on the schedule already, I wouldn't take their money for that.
No.
You know, I would be like, no, we're already going to do that. Like just, you know, we'll choose their second thing.
Yeah.
So like, I didn't imagine a history of the show where we never did Alan Wake, you know, or we never did. That wasn't a request. What was I thinking of?
Alan Wake was a request.
Oh yeah. You're right. Yeah. Sorry. I forgot. Yeah. I don't picture a version of the show where we'd never do Alan Wake, but we didn't have it planned for this year.
Right.
You know, we probably would not have done it this year. Or like something. And then, so that happens. And then as far as stuff that is not on our radar, like tons of stuff. So like Hit and Run, when we did, what was that Diablo like PC game?
Oh, Nox. Yeah.
Nox. We did Nox. You know, like there's lots of stuff like that is like certainly not on our radar, but I was really happy to like get a chance to talk about.
Yeah. Or, you know, just like it's jumping in the queue. So it seemed like it would make sense to do an EDF game at a certain point. But then we just, you know, like they got us off our ass to do it, you know, when somebody patronized that month, you know.
And who knows when that would have happened, right? So like, we cover a lot of games in a year, but ultimately there are so many games and there are more new ones coming out all the time that like we're always going to be behind. So there is a chance some stuff where I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely imagine us doing that someday for the show. Maybe never happens.
Right.
You know, either because for some reason or another the show goes away, which I'm not planning. I don't want to have happen, but just, you know, life happens.
Right. Yeah.
You know, one of us like has our hands broken or something.
The only thing I can guarantee is that we won't be here forever.
Yeah, exactly. So like something like that happens. So it does kind of jump the queue, and that's a really good way. But I like it when we find surprises in that. Yeah. Like I like it when it's like, oh, I've always heard about that. Like as much as like Hit and Run was a mixed bag as far as a play experience, I was really happy to do that because it never would occur to me to be like, oh, that weird, you know, pretty good Simpsons game from the PS2 era. I'm just going to bust that out, even though I don't have any nostalgia for it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Let's see here. Is this me? Yes, it is.
This is you.
Okay. Let's hear. Kevin writes, when you schedule games for WoW or Adaptation Decay, how much do you try to sync it up with relevant new releases? For example, your Wolfenstein episode came out right about the time Wolfenstein Youngblood came out. Also, do you get a bump in your downloads when you do this? All of that is by accident. Can you think of a time where we've actually like, you know, programmed like that?
Yeah, I'm sure we have. I feel like I remember some time where we've been like, the sequel is coming out, let's catch a little bit of that heat.
Yeah.
But it's never had an effect. And also when we do catch that heat, it's I mean, the thing that's closest to that is like we did Dishonored 2 pretty closely after it came out.
Yes.
You know, that wasn't like us coinciding it, but we've never synergized. Like we've done a game when a sequel comes out. We've never done an Adaptation Decay at the same time we've done something else. We've talked about it, but it doesn't have an effect,
right?
Or anything like that.
Yeah.
There's also that question about metrics.
Right. Yeah. Occasionally this is a thing that we've noticed. We will cover a game and then a couple of weeks after that, or around the time the episode comes out, there'll be a news story about a sequel or a remake or things of that nature that come out. Like just blue car syndrome or whatever, where you just notice that where sometimes it feels like we are causing things to happen in the news by covering it on the show.
Let's do some lightning rounds and then get into the topic.
Yes, let's do.
Andrew says, Quickie, which character do you love more, JC or Geralt? I'm gonna go JC.
I'm gonna go Geralt.
That's me.
Yep.
Classic Tengen.
Let's fight. No, it's lightning round. We can go. Andrew writes, what is the absolute worst part or parts of one of or a few of your favorite games? Worst part of your favorite games?
The sewers and bloodlines is worse than anything that happens in Torment.
Yeah.
And worse than the end. Like the sewer and bloodline is pretty inexcusable.
Yeah. Pathologic playing it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. There's lots of horseshit in that. The constantly dying or getting to like day 3 before you know that you're fucked.
Yep.
Just when the story is getting good, but you didn't manage your food well enough early on, so fuck you. Is a pretty bad feeling.
Yeah. Those are answers.
Yeah. Who would win in a fight? This is Matt. Fight Club rules: bare knuckle, no shirts, no shoes. First one to tap out loses. I think we'd both immediately tap out to not do it.
Yep.
So I think that if whatever that situation is, we'd be like, haha, we both immediately tapped out. And then Jigsaw would then like skin us or whatever he was planning to do anyway.
Right.
To put us in that situation.
Because he would have done it anyway, regardless of if we fought.
Because he's making a huge rug. I need a tarp for my van. And the best kind of tarp is water resistant podcaster.
Yep. So. never touched by the sun. Yeah.
Yeah.
David
so
writes,
supple. He's never worked with his hands.
David writes, FromSoft offers to make NPCs in your likenesses and include them in Elden Rings. And you are allowed to pick who, what, or where you are. What do you pick?
It's sad that this never happened. I feel like if we were YouTubers, it would have.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it'd be fun to be a merchant. I'll be a merchant.
I want to be a character who immediately dies a very embarrassing death. Or like who recently died.
Sir shits himself or whatever.
Yep.
Like,
I just want to be an unfortunate corpse. Basically, I want to be that skeleton in Majula. But it's like still recognizably me somehow.
That'd be a good one. Ginger skeleton. John says, are there real life locations, past, present, or imagined future, that you've been really excited visiting in a digital forum in a game, or have you always wanted to see? My example being Singapore, by the way.
Yes,
this is bland, but that's John's answer. Not my answer. This is really bland, but I really want a good video game thing that's set in areas I'm very familiar with, which would mean like Portland or my hometown of DeKalb, Illinois.
Yeah.
Like I want Fallout Portland pretty badly. You know.
Yeah. All those MIT people got it. They got their Fallout game.
They got multiple ones.
All
like
those...
they go over to Washington.
Right.
Like, fuck, man.
Man.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. Just from like an interest perspective, it would be. I've generally wanted to play a game set in like the Russian Revolution. So teens pre World War I era Russia would be a lot of fun. Always wanted the Assassin's Creed game set there. Honestly. Yeah. Mr. Reciprocity writes, if Greta and Pocket get married, would that make the two of you brothers? How do you think it would affect the network? That implies that Greta and Pocket are our parents.
Yeah, that makes them our parents, as opposed to us being then like father-in-law. Like I would be Greta's father-in-law, and you would be Pocket's father-in-law, I think.
Which is weird because I already consider myself Pocket's uncle. Yeah,
it'd be really strange.
Yeah.
Cat incest. Pocket's much younger than Greta, right? How old is Greta?
Greta was about a year when I got her, so she's probably about 6 months older than Pocket.
Okay, so not that much,
right?
It's but it would make us fathers-in-law.
Yeah. I don't think it would
be with Kevin James and Adam Sandler or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it would affect very much. I don't even think they would know it if we had them marry each other.
Oh, the Pocket would know.
Okay.
Also prima nocta. So the there's all kinds of things that would pop up. So there's all kinds of things that would
Jesus.
pop up.
Please don't invoke prima nocta on the cat, Gary. Yuck.
It's just petting.
Okay.
It's just the night before. Like you get to do all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be fucking. I could just change her litter box and give her some snugs. So
she would like that. She would like that.
'Tis the king's right.
She doesn't like the laser pointer, but she loves the wand with a feather on the end of it. Just so you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving you tips on how to please my cat.
Like Marcellus Wallace's wife. Lewis Shaw says, can you think of anything more boring than a video game protagonist named Jake or Alex? This is not a rhetorical question.
A video game protagonist named John. Hi, I'm John, and this is my adventuring partner, Christopher.
Yeah. Jake and Alex and John are all pretty bland names.
Yeah.
You never the most common names you never see. Like there's no like Brian's in a game, and that's an extremely common name.
Yeah. Lots of Aidens though.
Yeah, weird. I've never met an Aiden in real life.
You're not hanging around enough middle schools.
Oh, undoubtedly not.
Okay.
Hanging out enough. Thank you. So I've been thinking that for years.
Cool.
And finally, Soren says, what would you tattoo on your co-host to drive them nuts? I'm talking a Mr. Bear waking up with a Star Wars tattoo, like breakdown, like when they saw it.
Yeah.
And there's a link to a relevant Aquid strip.
Yes.
To that.
I would get tattooed prominently on Gary's body, I hate Bloodborne.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Somewhere somebody could see too.
No.
Webcam.
Prominently, yeah.
Yeah. Very, very prominently. I might like, I don't know, do something like tattoo and Cole's tramp stamp in like Joker Man font, exit only, or something.
Just weird, just putting on my body weird stances about sex.
Yeah, just yeah, because I mean, not in a gay panic way, but just in a kind of like, boy, like I
really uncomfortable.
Huh? Yeah. You know. And it's a tramp stamp, so you wouldn't be able to see it that much. But I think that it would probably mean that you'd start wearing higher pants. Not that you wear really low pants, but you'd have to, because like, what if your parents saw that? You know?
Well, no, like because I wouldn't see it, I would forget that it's there, and then and that's the thing. Like I'd bend over, and my shirt would hike up, and somebody would say,
So funny.
And I have to
like, what?
And I would have to explain to them, like, okay, so no, I'm not gay, but also I don't hate gay people.
Yeah,
so like,
but I never tried it. It might be great, but also there was a Patreon question, so like I had to do
it. I didn't get a choice in it. It was specifically meant to get me into this situation, and by asking me this question, you have let my enemies win.
Played right into their hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. So let's move on to our topic.
Let's do it.
And this was not suggested as a topic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we thought it would be a good topic.
Yeah, kind of a good, a little bit of a pair to last month's topic a little bit. Because
so two questions speak to this.
Yes.
So we want to kind of hit both of them, kind of roll them together, and I just want to mention both of them because I want both people to know that their questions are being answered.
Mm-hmm.
Here, so I'll go ahead and just read both of them, and then we'll kind of start the discussion.
Yeah.
Or I'll read the first one, you can read the second one.
Yeah, let's do that.
Billy says, oftentimes the theme that comes up on the show is that above else, the way a game plays has to be fun, and that good story and theming doesn't make up for gameplay that isn't enjoyable. See Psychonauts Night in the Woods, for example. How does this relate to games that are praised often, but are also known for their less than ideal play? For example, Silent Hill 2 and Planescape Torment, games which are considered masterpieces by the general discourse, but are also known for their below average gameplay. Not meant to be a gotcha, just curious about your thoughts.
Of course you didn't mean that to be a gotcha. You boxed us in, but then you just cleaned it. You can't have it both ways, Billy.
Yeah, geez, Billy. And then Joe, what does Joe say that also is on a similar kind of theme?
Yes. So I'm going to summarize Joe's response here just a little bit at the start. It starts out, something in the discourse right now is whether or not Death Stranding is fun or whether or not it has to be fun. If its intention is to elicit unconventional or displeasing emotions, such as frustration, discomfort, grief, things like that. Since games are interactive, they have the potential to do something like this more than other media. What are your thoughts on this, especially because mechanical satisfaction was a big talking point in the horror dispatch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, if it's not obvious, the way that in my mind, at least, I'm tying these questions together is something like in the above example, there are arguments, not so much with like Psychonauts, or Torment that the tedium is intentional, but there are arguments that like the control scheme and arguments I'm not saying that they're bad. And something like Resident Evil is necessary, or that the walking around parts in Knights of the Woods are necessary. Those are parts that are gameplay that are not enjoyable. So basically, like what the topic being gameplay that is not enjoyable, but to an effect.
Yeah.
I guess, or to a point.
How important is fun? Can a game disclaim the necessity for being fun if it is trying to make a broader point? Yeah.
I've got a short piece on it, and I can start us if you're okay with that.
I would prefer that you do.
Chopping.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you so I think that the answer, like the short answer, is of course. Like games can create a lot of different emotions, and there's lots of things that are equally or more valuable than fun. I think that to me, and this is all subjective, everything is subjective, but this is certainly subjective, is that the danger that I run into with things like this is that not all substitutes for fun are equal. And I have a lot of patience for games trying to make me feel discomfort or grief or despair, and almost no patience for games trying to make me feel boredom. I think that making me feel tedium or frustration is not a good substitute for fun and is not worth what you're paying.
Right.
And trying to make me feel despair or sadness or other things that are traditionally not fun are actually worthwhile goals.
Yes. So
so the answer is yes, but not everything.
Right. It's not all weighted equally. I think that it has to be aiming for the right things, and it has to get, a good portion of the way toward getting there. Right.
Yeah. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Like it is really a risk to be like, hey, this part of the game is really, really unfun. We know that it's to a point. You're taking, I think in a game, like you're taking a really big gamble with that. And I know that that can be frustrating to people who are just like, oh, fun is a really short-sighted goal for a game. I understand that argument from like an art and kind of indie perspective. At the same time, I think that is the reality of the world we're living in. And I think that we talked earlier about having limited time to play games. How much of it do I want to spend being like just purely frustrated? Like signing up for that choice, the fact that is a more complex carb means that I am less likely to be in the mood for it.
Yeah.
Which means I'm less likely to play it, and there's so many games, that it's part of that inherent risk.
God, so many of my analyses in these discussions kind of come down to different kinds of currency in the different ways that they spend, it's like going back to the difficulty question, saying like, yeah, like that, like there are different flavors of difficulty, and they're going to have different conversion rates for a lot of people, different kinds of horror here. Yeah, no, like fun, it is something that, just like that will spend everywhere, right? That will generally, paper over a lot of things. And I think that even fun is like, it's a little bit of a fraught way to talk about it as well. When, in the horror example specifically, then also, talking about things like Psychonauts and Night of the Woods versus Silent Hill or Planescape Torment, like for me, fun is not as salient of an analysis point, as mechanical theme and mechanic integration is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like just the theme and the mechanic being integrated really, really well. That is the sweet spot for me. So like, I don't necessarily, when looking at Night in the Woods, feel like the wandering around is necessary for delivering the good stuff that is, that game delivers. Right. I don't see any connection between those two things as compared to, the disempowerment in Silent Hill 2. I feel like that is very, very integrated with James as a character and as a person,
Yeah. And with the genre.
Yes.
And just with, being, and the example that I always use for that is more Resident Evil than Silent Hill, just because it is more kind of combat focused.
Yes.
Than that, and having that kind of be like, this is a way to make combat that's actually pretty simple, a little bit tricky.
Yes.
Even though, and I end up, but it's so hard to talk about that through this framing because I think that's actually really fun.
Yeah.
I think that combat is very fun.
Same.
And you run into a tricky part with this too, because you run into intentionality, right? So like with Psychonauts, that was a part of this first question. So it doesn't necessarily tie into intentional frustration and grief, but that was meant to be fun.
Yeah.
The idea behind that platforming, like you're supposed to be having a blast during that. Like you're supposed to have fun during the meat circus.
Yeah.
That's a failure of something it intended, which is always going to be more damning than succeeding at something that is probably not worth what you bought. Right. Like I think that in Night in the Woods, I do think that the fact that it takes forever to get around is intentional. I think that what they wanted to do was give a sense of that town and make you have this feeling of like living here and getting to know it and all that stuff was important. I don't think it was worth what they bought with it for me.
Yeah.
Like I would have enjoyed that game a lot more without it. Like just full stop. And I would have gotten the themes better. It would have made and I don't understand that the town is part of the themes. I would have gotten the themes that I did manage to get out of it. I would have got stronger and clearer and earlier and in a more positive way without that.
The sense of the community comes through in the dialogue and in the individual places that you go. It doesn't come from the connective tissue of getting from point A to point B.
From walking on power lines.
Right.
Yeah.
To me personally, like if I was like picking the locations from a menu, that like it would have sufficed. Primarily because like the dialogue and characters and stuff are strong enough that, it carries it. It doesn't need to lean on the exploration.
Yeah. Yep. So it's interesting because fun is, when you talked about that being a bad word, like fun is a hard word in games, kind of like criticism anyway, and has been roundly kind of criticized because it's non-descriptive. Like there are people who, walking around, jumping on those power lines in that game is incredibly fun to them. Like it became part of this routine. They just like it.
Yeah.
Same thing. I think a lot about the daily grind in a Persona game, which is always what ends up stopping me from revisiting those games and not wanting to do them is the managing my social links during the day. Like that rhythm is fun for a while and then eventually becomes very tedious to me.
Yeah, no.
And it's not the interest, it's not the content. It's like, oh, I have to go to this class and then talk to this groundskeeper. And maybe if I talk to him enough, I get, this link. It's not the writing and characterization is not always good enough in those to make that worth it. And the time in between and the friction ends up being more than I want. It's not not worth what it costs. I can't remember where I was in the beginning of that. I lost my thread a little bit.
That's fine.
Save me, Cole Ross.
Yeah. So I was going to come out, and go jump back to the second question, just because it's not like if you are aiming for, a sense of desperation, if you are aiming for, instilling into the player any of these negative emotions, like you can do that and still have it be fun. This year we covered one of my favorite games of the past decade, Frostpunk. Right. And I just give that to 10 people and have them play it. I don't know how many of them are going to come away saying that was fun. Like they're not going to come by with like their dopamine spiking and their serotonin up. Like it's probably, going to be harrowing. They're going to feel stressed out, etc. However, that is an example of the theme and the mechanics working together very, very well to get across a point. I don't think it is a bad game just because you come away from it feeling stressed. I don't think it is a bad game, because you come away from it thinking like, geez, like that just does not make me feel good. It is incredibly well designed to the point. And I think that is because it is a very good management and survival sim, and it supports what they were trying to get across, which is the choices that need to be made, and getting in that main scenario, getting you to figure out if you're going to cross the line to make the mechanics of survival easier for yourself. Yeah. Right.
Well, and it is kind of, I want to unpack a little bit or separate out like two things that you've mentioned before. Like Frostpunk is actually a really good example. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because the theming and mechanics working together is something that I tend to admire more. Like that plays into a critical consensus of something. Right. So like in a game, I can look at something like a Persona and be like, yes, living this year and spending every day as this student does make you feel like it succeeds in the way that it is taking mechanics and kind of narrative and trying to marry them together. That's successful. Night in the Woods also successful.
Yeah. Like,
the idea is I walk through this town, I spend this kind of thing, I'm getting to know the place. It's successful in that, but it's different than enjoyable, which is maybe a better word than fun, because like Frostpunk, I think that you're right that a lot of people could sit down and play that and just be harrowed by it and not have fun. That kind of harrowing is fun to me.
Yes. Same.
I had tons of fun with that game. It was very fun.
That's why I couldn't put it down.
Yeah. You know what? But and you can not do that. You can not be enjoyable. Pathologic.
Yes.
Not particularly enjoyable. Not fun or enjoyable. But its mechanics and themes work really well, and that was so admirable that it crossed over into still being worth it.
Yeah.
It's just it's a heavy price. Like when you said different currencies spend differently, like that's really what it is. Like, and when I talked about it being a risk, right? So like Pathologic made that risk and they knew what they were doing and they fucking knocked it out of the park. Like we're going to bet everything on this thing being really unenjoyable, and they did it. And I think that there is the same way I just talked about recently how there's like, I feel like a real like 201 level film take that ambiguous endings are the only worthwhile endings.
Yeah.
Or even just stories in general. Like it has to be ambiguous or it's not good. I feel like the idea that this is boring, therefore it must be artful and good is also a really shallow take.
Right. That will lead you to come away and say that, oh man, like Salvador Dali or Andy Warhol are some of the best filmmakers ever. Like, no, not really.
Like, Andy Warhol is a horrible filmmaker.
Yeah.
Like he's horseshit and he was making fun of you.
Yes.
Like it's just, it's not like, I don't know. It is so kind of going through and just being like, this has to be good, right? Like it's The Simpsons, like him watching Twin Peaks and be like, like this is so brilliant. I don't get it at all, And not that Twin Peaks is bad, but just right. I think that people can come off that way when they leap to defend anything that is, and then nobody asking this question is that, but it's something I see where it's like, no. TDM is great. Like it's tedious, therefore it's good. No, right. TDM is a tool. It's a risky tool.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is good, but I think that saying it's inherently valuable is not something I can get on board with.
Yeah.
It all depends on how it is used.
It's part of a holistic, it is part of a holistic whole. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be redundant there, but like it has to be examined holistically. And you've got to look at, the broader intention. And just like the overall success of the product itself, not like, commercially or whatever, but like just as an overall experience,
as a piece of art, like as a work, and this it ends up being dovetailing really weirdly into, we've talked about like kind of the grind of things like podcast games, like whether it is good for a game to have long, boring parts in which you can check out, and that feels different to me too, because I don't feel like that's intentional either. Like this is an aspect of game where the intentionality is really key to this, because from a squint, it is hard to see the difference between a game trying to be fun and failing and a game that is intentionally trying to use TDM. Like I don't feel like Final Fantasy V was intentionally trying to use TDM.
Right.
I don't buy that argument that the idea that you're just kind of going through these endless series of battles is something that they are trying to make a point with. That is not theme and mechanic integration.
No, because the end product still felt like a lot of games from that time, or slightly before it. It didn't feel like a reaction to anything. It felt like a pure expression of that to me.
Yeah.
It's it's tough. And like, it's really tough not to just come across and look at the volume of what we said about this topic and say, oh, things that we like do this good, and and things that you like that we don't like do it poorly. It's so
as subjective as anything.
Yeah,
it's super subjective, and people have different amounts of patience.
Yeah,
for this, and those things change. Like I've talked a lot about how my patience has changed for this stuff. Like I used to be more down for like just a real slow pace. Like, I'm gonna sit down and watch the intro to Akami. Fuck, I'll watch it twice. That was me back in the day, and now it's like I don't want to do that because it's boring. Like it's pretty, but it's boring, and I want to just play the game.
Yeah.
So that can definitely change. But the idea that like, I think that the biggest takeaway for me, I know I've said it a couple times, but is that you have to be really careful with this.
Yeah.
It's something that I see games fail with more than I see them succeed with.
Yeah. And it ends up being a little bit frustrating. It's a little bit like, we talk about weirdness bias or quirk bias, right? Like,
yes,
looking at something like, I don't know, let's choose a non-controversial one, so let's pick a, like Mr. Mosquito. That's a really interesting concept and not terribly fun to play. Does it deserve to be considered one of the best games? Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, like it's not terribly enjoyable. It's also not terribly interesting.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting, but to what end? Like it's not terribly good. Like in a holistic sense, it doesn't add up to very much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something worth considering, I think, but it's as objective as anything, and I think that it's something that for me is bats about 20%. Like games that have done, so like thinking of games that have done tedium specifically and made that work, it's hard for me to think of more than a couple examples.
Yeah.
I think that like the offbeat level in the hospital in Hotline Miami that feels so disempowering and shitty is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It's because it's a level. You get through it. Like it's frustrating, it's dumb, but you get through it and then you're back to what you were. And I think that little contrast helps a lot.
Yeah.
That's one. What are some other examples of games that do that kind of thing? And discomfort and grief and terror and all those are very easy to find. Games that did that really well.
Yeah.
Spec Opsies.
I think of tedium. When I think of tedium, I think of like day in, day out kind of stuff. This is probably not going to be a very popular thing. This is a game that I really like. But Stardew Valley is a very tedious game. Because that is about the routine. It is about setting up the chores and going and kind of hitting the same boxes every single day. But that is a game that, at least ostensibly, is about establishing a simpler life for yourself, in this new community. Right. So,
and some people will make the charge that is not fun. Like why would I play that? Yeah. And there's so many, it's such a specific subjective thing. So like for me, like I like Stardew Valley. I can't really play, like I have not successfully played an Animal Crossing since the first one, because initially it is fun. And then I get bored because they're mostly about collecting things.
Yes.
And a day in, day out, like routine of talking to little NPC animals. That is too much for me. That's not successful tedium.
Yeah.
To me. So
I'm trying to decide if something like Cart Life satisfies the tedium. Like I find that the systems in that too engaging. Just stocking your stuff and trying to keep your landlord from finding out about your cat and making change and dealing with complaints and stuff. I find all of that so engaging. I think all of that works to the point of making a point about poverty. That I don't really read it a lot as tedium, although it would be hard to argue that, tedium is not a major part of it. Right. Yeah.
And that's to an artful expression. Something I thought of just now, like, I think that's a great example of this, right? Because that is tedious and discomforting to an end.
Yeah.
It's making a point. I think that when you use that kind of thing, to borrow another phrase of yours, like dose makes the poison, right? So like with something like Cart Life, which is a few hours of like an art game, or Papers, Please, which is a few hours of an art game, frustrate me, tedious me, like make me make my point to think about your art thing. When that ends up being a 10, 12, 30 hour game, that you argue that it's doing tedium to make that same point or doing frustration to make a point, that is just simply too much by volume.
Yeah.
Your point, that is when, the law of diminishing returns, like you're not buying enough with what you're spending. At that point, and it's like I've not played Death Stranding, and like that's not the tedious part is not the least interesting part of that to me. But like, it's something I think about. It's like, man, this is like a 50 or 60 hour game. Even if you could convince me that the FedExing part, the truck simulator part, is intentionally tedious to an artful point, is it 60 hours of that? Is it 50 hours of that?
Yeah.
Probably not for me. Like that's too high of a price.
Or even scaled down. Kind of an example that comes up when we talk about imposed tedium. It comes up a lot when we talk about this. No More Heroes, right? Where they are building in those little odd job missions that you have to do in between the hits. Right. So, not only is it like, hey, we're making a point about bad video games by being a bad video game. No, fuck that. You are what you pretend to be. There's functionally no difference. Second off, like, don't stop me from doing the fun thing that I'm here for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an element of this that is very, it's like not a word that I use really lightly, but there's an element of this that can be purely like pretentious in a literal sense, like putting on pretenses.
Right.
And No More Heroes feels that way. Yeah. Like No More Heroes, I think, is not a grand damning document about video games. It wants to be both. It wants to be a fun video game. It also wants to kind of make a little bit of a joke about what video games are. And when it does those odd job things, what you do is like, yep, you got me. Fuck you though.
Yeah.
Like, you convinced me to play something boring for a second. What if I just quit?
Yeah.
You don't, I'm not a captive audience.
Right.
So like for any of these things, like you don't threaten me with boredom. Like it's not going to work because I don't have to be here. You're not my boss. No More Heroes. So it's so easy to walk away from this thing.
Right.
And with something like No More Heroes, it is not, yes, those mini games are explicitly there to kind of make fun of bad video games and to be boring. At the same time, though, I don't feel like it's a holistic or artful enough work to justify that.
Right.
And I don't want to pay that to get it.
Right.
So, yeah. Just like the first part of Billy's question, like the reason why games that are not fun to play can still be considered masterpieces, even though they have less than ideal play, is like either they go so far in one direction as to like blow the curve. I don't like thinking of games as transactional. I don't like thinking you pay the price of the mechanics of Planescape in order to receive the narrative of Planescape. I think that's not a healthy framing. At the same time, though, the narrative of Planescape is so fucking good that like, anything that's in is worthwhile. Like it blows out of the curve. Pathologic is a worthwhile thing.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how hard it is to play because it's doing such interesting, cool shit. And it is really thematically rich and dense in a way that is really rare. And even then it's like, I still think you should just listen to our episode on it. I don't think you should play it. So it's things can be good enough to spite this. I think is that answer.
And I think that just that there are certain things that are statistical outliers, for lack of a better way to frame it. Like Planescape, like I don't know that that's a bad game so much as it is like an ill-fitting wrapper for the payload that is trying to deliver, right? Yeah.
It's also a worse game now than it was when it came out in terms of like how it's considered. Like it's like an interesting thing because it's not at the time, like right now in retrospect, the common, it is the common refrain that like, oh yeah, this all of the mechanics parts of this are trash. At the time, that was not my experience or really what people thought.
Right.
It was much more of the time, at that time, that kind of game just kind of felt better and people weren't clanging off it. Like a lot of the kind of caveats you have to put on recommendations of that to get the good part are through 2019 eyes. It's a modern gaming kind of lens.
Yeah. And they're to a certain point, let's say the index card that a lot of people have about a game ends up being if not self-fulfilling, at least self-reinforcing.
Oh yeah.
It's like you're probably, you're pretty like your reaction to the play of Planescape is probably going to be, different and maybe worse than if you just walked into it. If you walked into it blank, then if you walked into it with people saying, "Oh yeah, the play in this is dog shit," when in reality it's just like, "Oh yeah, it's treat it like a point and click adventure game, and the combat is there, but you can get through it."
Yeah, it's and those things, because that's the way those things end up getting magnified.
Yeah.
As well. Like I was trepidatious about Ultima Underworld 2, and that turned out to be fine. Like it doesn't control perfectly. Like it took a little while to get used to, but like it was something that I had a reputation for being this gem that was like, though you got to get past these controls, man. They're absolutely horrible. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
It is a rough half hour to an hour, and then there is so much to enjoy about it after that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah. There's surprising like how many topics this touches on, because that touches on controls, and it touches on like changing standards of controls as well. Like, not that we have to branch off entirely into that, and it's not necessarily the intended part of the question, but it's related. Yeah. In kind of an interesting way.
Yeah. So like if I had to sum it up, I mean, it goes back to something we said about, let's say 2/3 of the way through this area. It's like, tedium, using the interactivity for tedium and using it, for these things that are not straight up enjoyableness, let's say, should be done judiciously because it is a very powerful spice. Right?
Yeah. Yep. Really easy to put too much, too much clove in your Tom Collins mix. You're gonna high crust.
Yeah. Sorry. I was about to say you're going to ruin the stew, but then you went and turned it into the Tom Collins mix and pie crust and cloves.
Let's go call mom. I watched that now that I have all the Simpsons. It was one of the first ones I watched because I was thinking about that scene specifically. Let's go get mom. It is the thing
the
that crunch.
It's the straw that broke the camel's back. Let's go get mom. Oh man, I'm surprised you were able to laugh at anything when it was in widescreen and not
with that aspect ratio. Yeah, how could anybody enjoy anything?
Yeah,
any at all. Just in general. But yeah, so agreed there. Something I feel passionate about. I don't like games making me bored.
Yeah, no, it's
just it's a weird thing. It's like it's so tricky in the times that people have done it good. Very rare.
Yeah, if you're going to get away with it, you got to make a damn good game. I don't know. It's a little bit like shocking humor or edgy humor. Like, it's fine. You just better be funny if you do it. Yeah. And just what people consider tedium is just going to be like, I was thinking about how much I like downtime in games and how it's different. Yeah. Like, to me, visiting UNATCO between missions is not tedious at all. Right. Like, that's incredibly fun and awesome, and it's a highlight of that game to me. But there probably are people who are like, this is tedious. This is the game using tedious. And I feel like tedium is different than downtime too. Yeah. Downtime is necessary for pacing. Yeah. But that downtime doesn't have to be tedious. There's a difference between you can put content in that downtime. Yeah. So moving on to your responses to our games that we cover in November. Stay tuned until the end. That's where we'll be announcing our games for January. Yeah. If you're hearing this, if you have things to say about our December games, you can hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact, and we'll read your responses next month. Yep. Deadline is December the 15th. And those games are, of course, Jade Empire and Tyranny. Yes. Okie doke. Let's get into it. Let's do it. Let's see here. So starting with The Last Express, Eric writes in via contact. So why does Kath care if Kronos gets the Firebird or not? I only watched a Let's Play of The Last Express, so I assumed I had missed something and Kronos had a sinister motive behind wanting the bird. But from listening to your episode and reading the wiki, he doesn't? He's just an art collector. Look, I don't want a rich guy who pulls a gun on me to have a nice thing either. But it feels weird that Kath essentially murders two people via Robo-Bird, all to prevent an art collector from having an ugly egg. Also, after ripping off Tyler Whitney's face, why did the bird return to the egg? It sure as hell didn't retreat into its home during the game's ending, so why wasn't it just clanging around Whitney's compartment until Anna entered, subsequently killing her, Francois, and everyone else on the train? By the time Kath showed up, the Orient Express should have been a slaughterhouse. We don't go in that car. No one goes into that chamber. The bird is loose.
The bird. The bird is in that chamber. It is part of the legend of the Orient Express. The romance of the rails. Those are good questions, Eric.
Very good questions. I think that maybe the people who plotted The Last Express cared more about other things than making sure those questions had good answers.
I think if I'm being as charitable as possible, and I'm not trying to devil's advocate, I think the only reason why Kath cared whether Kronos got the egg is because he was trying to fulfill his dead friend's wishes. And maybe as part of him trying to think about what Tyler thought, like that Tyler didn't want him to have the egg.
Yeah.
But I don't, but he was also going to trade the egg for the gold to get, so I don't know, like there are plot holes. Again, that game is very, like, some of the most joy I've had recording this show is doing that episode. Like, I think that's one of our best episodes, actually. And I think that part of it is so fun to go into something thinking it is a highbrow prestige thing and have it come away like 70% that.
Yeah.
Have the other 30% just be this.
Yeah.
It's such a joy. I think about that egg like with frequency.
Thinking about those eggs.
Like, makes me laugh. Every time I think about that egg, it's such a joy. Good egg.
Oh, fantastic egg content. Yeah. But I don't have satisfactory answers for that question. All I can think of is by the time Kath sixed the mechanical bird on Kronos had fucked him over enough times. He was holding people at gunpoint for it. So it might have been revenge. I've got no idea.
Teleported back onto the train.
Yeah.
He didn't like that.
Yeah.
He's a trainomancer. Like,
yeah.
Craif says via contact.
It's Craig. It's Craig. I'm sorry.
Craig. Oh, that's okay. What up, Craig? Craig. Craig says, your early comments on the lack of puzzles in The Last Express in favor of observation as a central mechanic reminds me of another adventure game from around the same time, Riven, the sequel to Myst. River has all of 2 actual adventure game puzzles, and the rest of the game tasks you with exploring the world, discovering how it works, and extrapolating that information to figure out new things that the game doesn't explicitly hint at. This makes the game hard as shit, but also feels like a more realistic world where everything's connected, rather than being a discrete sequence of puzzles strung together by world building.
We're going to do Riven at some point.
Yeah.
All of this is good points. The fact that there are only two places where you have to actually enter a solution, and the rest of it is seeing enough of the island to discern that the entire thing is one big key to the puzzle. All of that is very good. We're just going to have to do the game sometime to talk about that in detail.
Yep. And then we'll move on to Myst 3, Myst 4, and the Forbidden Myst 5.
I mean, they're all okay.
All right, I somehow got the impression that 3 and 4 were not very good.
They're fine. I mean, they're not as good as 2, but 3 has interesting worlds, let's say, and 4 is a very satisfying follow up to the story of Myst 1 because it does deal with Cirrus and Akanar again. Yes,
good boys.
There was specifically bad boys.
Specifically bad boys. I remember the boys. The puzzles in general would be a pretty good topics discussion. There was a question we got on the Patreon, but we didn't get to it in this episode about that.
Yes.
Like what we think makes a good puzzle. I think that would be a good topic sometime, either for this, one of these, or for an overflow episode, which we're due.
Oh yeah.
So watch your Patreon feeds. We're going to be doing another overflow episode pretty soon. And I think puzzles is a really good one of those because it's something that there's a lot to.
I would need to do a lot of reading to hone that, because that is such a wide remit for conversation. Very, very, very
not even
topic.
Thinking good. Not even defining it, but I think that the question that we didn't get to, and I'm not saying we answer it now in the middle of our response things, but
right.
We've talked a lot about what makes a bad puzzle, what makes a good puzzle.
Yeah.
I think that's something we could talk about at some point. Let's move on to Simpsons Hit and Run responses.
Yes, let us do that. So Bort Simpson writes in via contact. My son is also
my son's
Bort.
Last name is also Simpson.
But Bort says, it's debatable how well the GTA 3 mission structure fits the Simpsons property, but I think the sandbox format delivers on what most people want from a Simpsons game, which is simply the ability to explore a 3D rendering of Springfield. The one game system that really stuck out to me was that after failing a mission a certain number of times, it would give you the ability to simply skip the mission. As a kid who wasn't great at video games, especially vehicular missions, I loved this feature. It's a great example of a game knowing its audiences, where there were probably a good percentage of people who weren't, quote, hardcore gamers, but were simply drawn to the game because of a desire to see more Simpsons content. It's not a system that I would want to see pop up in a ton more games. I think just the ability to switch to an easy mode works most of the time, but I'm surprised that there haven't been more to adopt this feature. That's something Nintendo does. Especially in their kind of like more modern Mario games, like they will, if you fail enough times, it will say, "Hey, do you want to press this button to have the computer do it for you?"
Yeah, or here's invincibility for the whole level.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I generally am in favor of those.
Yeah,
let me skip the mission and do it without shame. I talked about how much I hate the chicken hat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let me change difficulty. Let me skip the mission. Don't make fun of me.
Yep.
Like, it's not my fault that like this part of your game you thought was hard, I thought was easy, and this part of your game you thought was easy, I thought was hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's the nature of subjective experience. Like, you do not have one over on me for that.
Yeah.
So just let me get past it.
Yeah. My preference would be that they never get to the point where they have to do that. Just design it tightly enough that you don't get there, but not always the case. And you should be able to see the content in a game.
Yeah. And it's I think that more than it being built into the game, I like it built into the game like that, as long as it's not condescending or anything like that, but it just built in through like, maybe cheats. I really like level selects or level skips on stuff like that, because there's a little bit of additional friction for it, and then the game isn't pinging me for it. Like, I have to hunt it down.
Yeah.
I think that's the appropriate amount of friction to me. But yeah, agreed. Bort.
Yeah.
Moving on to Jerry Kahn, who sponsored the episode, says, Viva Contact. Simpsons Hit and Run is a game that I wish I could recommend, but really cannot, except for to the most diehard fans. Its base driving mechanics are solid and fun. It's full of clear love and reverence for the show. Its soundtrack is excellent, and its script is quite funny. I genuinely have fun with it, even driving in the Squidport, but I really can't recommend it. I don't believe the devs are entirely at fault. I think the quality of much of what's in there shows that they had a great deal of passion for the game and made the best with what they had. A developer that lets you reverse the Planet Hype car out of its billboard and drive it around probably cares. But it definitely seems like it just needed a little bit more time and testing to fix the difficulty problems and smooth out the economy and develop some more mission variety that feels like should have been there. On the plus side, I think it does hold the distinction of being the good Simpsons game that best represents the show. The other option for a good Simpsons game is the arcade game, but while its developers are undoubtedly talented, that game is a bizarre lost in translation version of Season 1 Simpsons. Hit and Run is much more representative of the comedy and characters the Simpsons would become famous for. Agreed.
Yeah. No, I have no complaints about the general Easter egg heavy Springfield exploration parts of it. I had no idea you could hop in Mole Man's car and drive it out of Planet Hype.
Yeah, that's great. I also didn't know that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
As far as games that, like, again, I was at a mixed experience playing, I'm so glad we did that for the show, because it was fun to actually touch base with it.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I mean, it's also like just a different, I'm going to say this word and it's going to come across as dicky or elitist. It's a different caliber of game than we usually do for the show. Like,
yes.
a licensed genre clone is not necessarily something that would normally be like bait for us. But it was a good, let's say, category of games to dip into, right?
I think so too.
Yeah. Jerry Con didn't recommend that. Was Volpes, right?
Oh, Volpes, you're right, actually. Yeah. I apologize. I apologize to Volpes, and I apologize to Gary Con. Gary Con. Before we get into Deus Ex, I have a special update.
Oh!
Watch out for Fireballs edition. There's a thing we missed in this that's one of my favorite jokes, and we missed it, and I'm really mad.
Okay.
So it's taking everything I have not to, like, steal it from everyone's Ponos and re-edit the episode.
Okay.
But when you go to Picus, they have, so in all the computers in the entire game, you can have 4 emails. And when you go to Picus, they have a thing where it's a company policy that you can only have 4 emails, and you get a warning that your inbox is almost full when you get 2, and that's the third email is the warning. It's one of, like, the best jokes about, like, the format of those types of games.
That is so good.
And I noticed it when you were playing it, but I totally forgot to bring it up during the episode. Yeah. I'm very mad at myself because I love it. like warning your inbox is almost full at the third email you got. So good.
I remember seeing that. I don't know why I didn't make a note of it. I apologize for failing in that regard of putting together the outline.
It's a-okay. I just forgot about it because it had been too long since between when I played it and we recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure everyone listening, if you've already written in, that's fine. We deserve anything you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're listening back and you're thinking about Human Revolution, and you're like, you know what? They sold me. That game seems really cool. I just wish it was 1% funnier.
Yes,
it is. There's there's at least that one really excellent joke in there. So,
Thank you for bringing that up. Let's see here. Is this me or you for Jacob?
This is you.
Okay. Jacob writes via contact, Deus Ex Human Revolution is officially my favorite stealth game because of a moment in the non-lethal playthrough that I did last month. The thing that clinched it was waiting for the funicular. I was low on supplies and had no idea how I'd get through that section without killing anyone until I had an idea. 10 minutes later, all of the entrances to the room were blocked with vending machines that nobody else could move, and I waited comfortably while watching little red triangles swarm around the edges of the minimap. God, what I wouldn't give to watch the security footage.
Yes. Your ability to move fridges and vending machines in that game is MVP.
I got so much more use.
And it would work in real life.
Oh, yeah. It's one of the, I mean, it's also weird that it's an augment that gives you the ability to do as an aug what a regular human can do with a furniture dolly.
With a hand truck.
Yeah.
My hand truck is augmented.
I've moved lots of fridges.
I didn't ask for this. Why did you give me a hand truck?
I mean, I don't know. I need to ask for a hand truck for Christmas, actually. Those are useful.
I've got a really nice, foldable one that I use for one of my amps.
Oh, yeah?
It's great. It's sturdy and also very portable. So
love it.
They exist.
Yeah. But yeah, that is a very good story. The funicular comes up a couple of times in these responses. I didn't expect that to be that memorable section of a game.
Yeah. This one is definitely one of my favorites. So I'm with you, Jacob, as a vending machine enthusiast in those games. Steven says via contact. This game was my introduction to the immersive sim genre, and it's the first game I've had time to replay along with the show. Despite its artificiality, I love Deus Ex's stealth system. The tile-like layout of the rooms, the fixed guard patrols give it a wonderful puzzle box feel. The pullback into third person when you're in cover is something I wish a lot more games would add, since it drastically cuts the wall staring time. And playing through the director's cut this time, it's been a joy to work my exploration and hacking skills into the boss fights as well.
Agreed. Yeah. I think that artificiality is necessary in a stealth game.
Oh yeah, like a realistically modeled stealth game.
No. The levels need to be playgrounds for the system.
Well, I oftentimes think about why whenever in a stealth game, whenever you come up with an elevator, no one's looking at it when you get off an elevator, and it's because they're video games.
Yeah,
like in real life, somebody might be looking at the elevator and then you just be fucked. But it never happens that way.
Yeah, you can't control when those doors open. Those buttons don't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They put you on a list at the fire department.
Yeah.
Do not save list.
They take your fingerprints from the button.
Yeah. The little burn motherfucker list. They keep down to every fire department.
We don't need the water. Yeah, like if you want an
like Gary Butterfield burn.
If you want an example of what happens when a stealth game isn't designed with artificial environments in mind, look at portions of Siren or Siren Blood Curse, which is an interesting game but a terrible stealth game. Yeah,
I believe it.
Very frustrating. Yeah. Let's see. This will be me. Brian writes via contact. Viva Panchea. Panchea. There. Picture this Venn diagram. On the left, BioWare's carefully crafted dialogue and a protagonist with enough of a distinct personality to be memorable but also customizable. On the right, Arcane's carefully crafted levels and a tight mechanical foundation that lets you play stealthily, high octane, or a mixture of both. Human Revolution sits nicely in the center but manages to keep itself unique with a near-future aesthetic. There are two things I remember being disappointed about upon reaching the end of the story. First, the literal push this button to get a different ending sequence was a bit of a buzzkill. Second, there's the mystery of why Adam's body doesn't reject his implants. The answer is hinted at during Mankind Divided, but it seems like such a minor plot thread to leave dangling for so long.
There's that one side quest that talks about it a little bit as well.
Yes.
Which is easy to miss, but it talks a little bit about his origins being, his parents being fake and all that stuff. Very similar to JC Denton.
Yes, his provenance.
Yeah. So it does hint at that, but it's probably, and they don't go fully into it. Mankind Divided. It's probably something that was going to be a big part of the third game if they ever got to make that. Which hopefully some interest in Deus Ex comes back.
Yeah,
and they actually finally do.
Hopefully.
So if they try to stuff one more Deus Ex Go down my throat, I'll fucking vomit.
Man,
Deus Ex Go is fine.
It's fine, but what a whiff after Hitman and Tomb Raider Go.
Yeah, Hitman Go is much better.
Yeah.
Than those ones. I don't like the Tomb Raider one that much. Like Hitman Go pretty well. Tomb Raider one's okay.
Yeah.
Those in general are better than they have any right to be, while also not being like must plays to me.
Yeah,
I feel like. Patches says via contact. I'm writing to share a Human Revolution specific story. Once I was watching my buddy play through Taeyong Medical and gave him some shit for murdering the security guards. My line of thought was, well, those guys are just here doing their job. His response was, well, yeah, but if you take their paycheck, you endorse what they're doing. I pointed out, yes, but you're leaving the scientist. The actual asshole is doing the black science alone while you're killing the guys with the guns who are just on payroll. He says, good point, and then proceeds to start mass murdering the scientist as well. When I came back 20 later, he was stacking lab-coated bodies like cordwood in a bathroom as he went room by room clearing the labs and offices.
What's important in the realm of ethics is consistency.
Exactly. It's very funny.
I like this works better in text, but just he says, and then in all caps, good points.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. I have a problem with my bathroom.
There's a problem. There's a problem with the toilet.
There's a problem with the toilet. There's a problem with the toilet.
God, that video is so good. Just go, if you didn't listen to the Hitman episode, just go to YouTube, put in "there's a problem with the toilet," and then open the Hitman video. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good stuff.
Yeah.
Man, Hitman.
Fuck.
Yeah, dude.
Somebody
play Hitman 2.
Somebody executive produce Hitman 2.
Yeah, I would love to. And well, they've done the DLCs for it now. They've released like a few like really good missions for it.
Yeah,
the
bank
mission
heist
and the island ones are both really good.
God damn, you don't need to tell me.
Yeah, I know.
The Suburbia and Miami ones look really good too from the main game. Fuck.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Hitman 2 is wonderful front to back.
Yeah, no, I believe you. I believe you.
Yeah. God, I love him. I love him.
There was somebody in the question earlier, like who do you love better, JC or JC Denton or Geralt? Somebody wrote Agent 47, which seems like also the right answer. Yeah.
It's a little like answering the Kinks to the Beatle or the Stones, but I'm also that guy. So
yeah,
even though it's like I can't argue with JC. JC is too important to me.
Yeah.
But it's just like Agent 47. Very special to me.
Yeah, but just like likely unintentionally funny stoics.
Yes.
Yeah, is a good genre of character.
Really, really funny.
Yeah.
Really good. What does Matt say?
Matt says via contact, in the dearth of summer gaming releases earlier this year. What dearth, Matt? Matt, what dearth?
Some people think that this is, I definitely like, people will be like, oh, it's a bad year for games, not very much came out. And I'm like, man, I've never experienced that. I've literally never experienced it.
Weird.
So
okay, so I'll pick back up again. I did not mean to put you on blast, Matt. Matt says, in the dearth of summer gaming releases earlier this year, I dug into my digital backlog to find something new to play and came across Deus Ex Human Revolution, which I had purchased in some sale and never quite gotten around to. So I installed it onto my Xbox and booted it up, only to be pleasantly surprised a month or so later when you announced that you'd be covering it for the show. As I'm sure you'll discuss, the game's flexibility and willingness to allow for varying kinds of play is, for my money, its best feature. Though I'll admit the characters and the story by and large bored me, even though that kind of thing is usually my jam. One of my favorite articulations of this came late in my playthrough, when Adam is warned summoning the funicular will rouse enemies, and that the area will need to be defended until it arrives. Having already dispatched most of the pre-existing enemies on the floor, I was able to take some time piling crates and vending machines in the way of the area's 2 large doors and lounge in a vent using my X-ray vision to watch puzzled guards try to find their way in.
Yes.
Moments like this almost made up for the complete misery I felt in taking on the bosses, as I was playing the original bad boss version of the game. Horrible bosses. Deus Ex horrible bosses.
Yeah, horrible bosses too. Deus Ex. Charlie Day, for some reason.
They made that. They made a horrible boss.
Yeah, no, I know.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw that first one, and it's real weird that I watched it. I don't remember what drove me to.
It's fine.
It wasn't good.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah. All that, if you're just playing Human Revolution for the first time and you're enjoying all that stacking stuff up, you can pick up almost anything in Deus Ex 1.
Yes.
So just pointing out that all of that stuff, like there's a part where you have to sneak to the top of a friendly tower and plant something that causes the entire tower of your people to go against you. And you can spend that entire time moving vending machines and boxes and stuff to create like fortresses and mazes for them.
Yes.
And things. You can do all kinds of weird shit like that. It is more free than Human Revolution. So if you dig that kind of thing, and the story is much better.
Yeah, assuming you have not already gone all in on Deus Ex.
Yes.
That you can do anything is much more strongly expressed there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite thing, like that mission is such a good articulation for it because you can like create a barrier. You can also, if you have the leg augment, just jump off the fucking building, which I think is baller as hell.
Yep.
You know, just like I'm out. I'm out. Yeah.
The kids would say that you yeet off of the tower.
You yeeted, or I thought you yeeted somebody else. I didn't know that you could self yeet.
I think you can auto yeet. Yeah.
You can auto yeet. I think that's how Michael Hutchins died. Rest in peace. Billy Bones says via contact. I was so glad to hear you two were covering Deus Ex Human Revolution, a game that, while short of a masterpiece, might be the most important game of the last generation to me. I grew up without much in the way of video gaming hardware, making do with my mom's subpar home PC to play endless hours of less graphically intensive Infinity Engine CRPGs. I fancied myself enough of a gamer American at the time to subscribe to PC Gamer and ogle all the games I would have no hope of actually running. Deus Ex was constantly name-dropped as one of the greats, and for years it was the untouchable grail for me. A chunky, systems-intensive, first-person game that had no hope to be able to run on my hardware. I knew one day when I was a functional and extremely cool adult with no parents and no bedtime, I would play it. As an adult with no parents, it is extremely cool. He continues. They continue. Cut to 2011, and me drunk and depressed with a secondhand 360. Games as spectacle had become more and more my thing, and I hadn't played anything deeper than a Bethesda RPG in years. Deus Ex Human Revolution released, and I remembered enough about the pedigree of the name to pick it up. What I found was a game that, despite its marked flaws, is maybe a contender for the perfect middle ground between smart and dumb, and served as a gateway into my now favorite subgenre of the 0451. I played through Human Revolution 2.5 times in a row. Although the aborted first attempt was due to speccing improperly for the vanilla version's inexcusable boss battles, I didn't even mind starting over since it gave me more time to revel in the world and sneak into people's emails. Human Revolution convinced me to dig back into Dishonored, buy Prey on release, and put 3 more playthroughs into Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. It also convinced me to give the original Deus Ex and System Shock 2 a shot, and I was surprised at how hard I bounced off them. Although from a distance I can admire the systems and of the progenitors of the genre, the amount of polish Human Revolution brought to the genre is what makes it so special to me and is a vital evolution for that genre. You mentioned in the episode that the polish, especially in terms of level design, can round out the 80% Deus Exiness. But I think the 20% reduces the friction in a way that makes this game go down like a much-needed dose of neuropazine. Here's hoping that Mankind Divided isn't the last of the series, and hoping you both eventually get around to playing it. Thanks, as always, for everything you've done to make the Duckfeed network and community so amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I have played Mankind Divided. I need to replay it, but I did. That was a day one for me.
Yeah.
So,
I think we agree. You know, when we talk about the polish, I think when I will take credit for this. If I raise the point that that the polish hurts it, that was in the context of hearing other people express something along that. I think that they gain a lot by the polish. That offsets some of the reduction in Deus Exiness that they brought in, by way of modernizing it, let's say. The polish helps, and the polish is not a negative.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think the polish is a problem with it. I think it's just kind of smaller in scope and has a dumber story.
Yeah.
Like I don't like it as much as Deus Ex because of that scope. It's not because of polish things for me. But again, I say that as somebody who finds Deus Ex like really playable.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Man,
no.
How crazy would it have been if Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 came out this year?
I don't know if I could handle it.
Me neither.
Like I still got to play Disco Elysium. Like I'm not doing good.
Yeah.
Games. All I do is I play Darkest Dungeon and Darkest Dungeon, Legend of Bumbo, and XCOM.
Yeah.
That's it for me. Those three, and that's all I can do. So I need to break out of this before I can play Bloodlines 2.
I say to myself, I'll play games in bed on the Switch, and I get in bed, and instead of loading up any of the good stuff that I should play for self-edification, I load up Picross S2, and then I will probably move on to Picross S3.
Yeah.
Yep. It's weird.
Yep. Nothing wrong with that, but it is definitely where I'm at.
Yeah.
So.
Finally here, Joe writes in via contact saying, I just wanted to share some really cool moments I had with Deus Ex Human Revolution. First off, human augmentation is something that I've been super interested in since I was small, and I've turned that interest into my career, so it didn't take much for me to immerse myself in the game. I had a couple of moments during the game that I think are particularly worth sharing. The first was during the period where you return to Detroit, and there has been an anti-aug riot in the city, with a bunch of rioters rounded up by the cops and yelling insults at you as you walk around. Considering I both don't deal well with discrimination and have been interested in augmentation since I was little, this evidently hit a raw nerve. I walked up to a group of tied-up folks, and one yelled something at me to the effect of, I'll kick your ass, and I literally yelled at the screen, try it, on angry reflex, which really caught me off guard. The other part was where your pilot crashes and you're told to just sneak through the area and leave. I found out later that you can actually save her. I tried a couple of times to defeat the enemies in the area. I was on a no-kill run, so this was pretty tough, and was unable to do it in time. Finally, I figured this was just a scripted event where I had to move on and snuck through. I was then shown the scene where they drag her out and execute her in front of you while you're stuck watching in the elevator. Shaking with rage, I immediately turned around and went back to the elevator. Turns out the developers must have expected that because they let you go back down. I immediately went back and killed every single enemy in the room, ruining my no-kill run. I really loved the game due to the subject matter, and the odd story worked really well for me, even with a clear as day choose your ending feeling odd. Those moments really stood out to me, though, as they made me really take a long look in the mirror and contemplate where those two bursts of intense, immersive anger came from. I always treasure moments where art makes me reflect on myself. And then they thank us and talk about how they want to hear what we think of the show. Think of the game, rather. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are awesome little moments. I love stuff where like a game gets you to do something for a non-mechanical reason. Mm-hmm. Or like a non-thing. Like my perennial example of that is always the end of The Walking Dead season 1, where like the guy will get out of the chokehold if you stop choking him, but I didn't stop choking him because I was really invested.
Yes.
So I kept choking him after the prompt. And thus he didn't get out, and I didn't find out until later that like he can actually escape.
Mm-hmm. He can keep going. Like it doesn't make you stop.
Yep. Well, and if you do stop, he gets out. It changes the story. Like he gets out of the chokehold.
Yeah.
So I love when stuff like that happens in games.
Yeah. No, I mean, the fact that they successfully manipulated you into abandoning your run like that. By really, leveraging your affection for Malik. Right.
I've had it stuck in my head because people have been talking about similar moments in the Slack.
Yep.
Of doing that, and someone in the Slack keeps posting the meme of Bugs Bunny looking down at his pistol, where it says like, "Heaven forgive me, but I'm back to the old me." Whenever somebody talks about doing this in Deus Ex, so I keep thinking about that. Like, heaven forgive me, I'm back to the old me. And I love those moments in games. Mm-hmm. I almost exclusively play Deus Ex games as robots who go crazy, who eventually just lose their mind at being betrayed, and it's a really fun role playing thing.
But yeah, just a game goading you into doing something without thinking. Acting solely on emotional reflex, and it's rare, right?
Really cool. And good on you for role playing.
Yeah.
Good on you for giving into that,
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. So thanks everybody for your responses. As mentioned, if you have things to say about manageable WRPG month, December, hit us up by December 15th. That's Jade Empire and Tyranny.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be back next week with our first episode on Tyranny, covering systems, the pro and the opening chapter.
Yes.
As well as the base building stuff. And then the second episode will be the body of the rest of the episode and kind of my tight 5 or 10 on the DLC.
Cool.
Which I'm looking forward to getting to. I've never played it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And now is where we announce the games we are covering in January.
2020, baby.
Mm-hmm.
And we are kicking off with a bang with my favorite game that I played in 2019 still, as 2019 rapidly dwindles. Dusk.
Yeah. Dusk, if you were not aware of it or if you didn't see that it came out, it is kind of a throwback to 2.5D shooters. I think something, build engine games like Duke Nukem 3D.
Mm-hmm. It is Lovecraftian. It is spooky. It has great level design. It is really, really wonderful action. It feels super good. You move very quickly. Like, it is so good.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Dusk.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to you trying it, and I'm really looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to getting into it. You have talked a lot of sugar about it. Similarly, after that, the second game we were doing in January is one of my favorite games that I played the year that I played it, not necessarily the year that it came out, but we're going to be talking about The Cat Lady.
The Cat Lady, baby.
Yeah, The Cat Lady, an adventure game, a horror adventure game that deals very seriously with themes of depression and terminal illness. I love it. It's a very good game. I want to go back to it and play it and analyze it and talk with you, Gary. I think that you will like it, both for its flavor and for the adventure game elements.
I'm really excited because we needed this is a really indie beginning of January 2020, which is cool because I've wanted to do more indie games for the show in general. I put out a big Twitter call for that a while back.
Yeah.
I don't think either of these games ended up on that Twitter call, but I do want to widen some variety of what we do.
Yeah.
Also, I needed that emergency scare package from our super limp October. So hopefully this is at least spooky.
Yeah, I think it is.
So,
and if it doesn't spook, it will definitely emotionally resonate.
I want that as well.
Yeah.
Everything except for TDM. See also an hour ago.
No TDM here. This moves very quickly.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't think it was going to be tedious. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
After that, we're going to be presenting our live panel from Portland Retro Gaming Expo 2019.
Yeah.
The subject of that was kind of unsung gems. So we each chose 3 games to talk about in brief and kind of give. So it's almost like 6 miniature WAFs in a live setting. The nice thing is in the beginning of that, there was some time stalling. So I told part of a story that is part of the Duck Bundle, which is a vasectomy story, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
I think so. It's going to end up on the public feed in one way, shape, or form. We'll also kind of record, of course, our traditional half hour or so of us just kind of reflecting on the event. At some point and talk about that a little bit. So I think those are fun episodes. And the nice thing is we're giving ourselves some time for some real spicy meatballs we have coming up.
Oh boy, such as that month's premium game.
Yep. Which is Shadowrun Dragonfall. Yeah. Something that I wanted to do forever for the show. I love those games. I love harebrained schemes. It's going to be, I'm really looking forward to you getting into it, Cole. Because it is, this is going to, it's like the theme for that month other than the live episode. It's a lot of enthusiasm for the other person.
Yeah.
So what if none of us like the things we think the other person's going to like? That would suck.
I mean, I think that
won't happen.
I think that we would both have the grace to handle it tactfully. I would hope so.
Well, I think who's we? You got a mouse in your pocket? You'd be a huge asshole about it. No. I think it's gonna be really fun. There's a lot of enthusiasm there. I'm really due for a Dragonfall replay, and I've never played the director's cut to completion.
Oh, nice.
So I'm gonna do that, and that's gonna be really a blast. And then we already have February planned, and I'm so fucking excited.
Yes.
For all of it.
Yeah.
So 2020 is gonna be an awesome year. 2019 was a really fun year for the show. And good shit. We're doing something in February that I wanted to do also for the whole thing that we've both been horny for. And I think it's going to turn some heads. I think people are gonna be really interested in hearing us talk about it. So
same.
The premium for that month is awesome. So
Cool. Yeah, I think that's everything.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for listening, and we will be back in 1 week's time with Tyranny.
Yes, we will. I am enjoying that as we are playing it. So
great.
Cool.
Good to hear.
Alrighty. So
ratings, reviews, patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. And we'll see you next week. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, I was just going to say these episodes are getting long, but it never feels like it takes a long time to do these. So,
yeah. Well, you could also say Duckstream December 20th.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Duckstream the weekend before Christmas. It's going to be a good time.
Yep. And Umbasa.
Umbasa.